Good Tuesday night to all of you. Thanks for joining me. As always, it is much appreciated. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Alex Barth joining me in the 8 o'clock hour. Full hour of Patriots talk with Barth coming up. 8 to 9. Can't wait for that. This show is going to be heavily leaning towards the Patriots as we get ready for camp officially starting tomorrow. And when I think about camp, I think about the number one question going into this camp, and that has to do with the quarterback position. We could talk about Jerod Mayo, but a great quarterback, if you landed a great quarterback in this past April's draft, that answers so many questions, right? It all begins there. A very good quarterback, a great quarterback can make a coach look better. A very good quarterback to a great quarterback can make the offense look a hell of a lot better. The Drake May, Jacoby Brissett competition is the number one thing to watch at camp, and I don't think it's close. Jerod Mayo met with the media earlier today. Here's what he had to say about Jacoby Brissett.
Coming out of the spring, I don't think there's any doubt Jacoby is the starting quarterback at this point in time. I mean, we can look at these other quarterbacks on the roster. At the same time, like it's about competition. And so when we get out on the field this summer with the pads on, we'll see how it all plays out. But, coming out of the spring, I think it's clear that Jacoby is the most pro-ready guy we have and play a lot of football.
At this point right now. That's what stands out to me when Mayo says that Brissett is a starting quarterback coming out of the spring. As of right now, at this point, things can change. Leave the door open. And that's what I thought Mayo did today by saying what you just heard him say. He's leaving that door open. Even if it's just a crack, he's leaving the door open. He understands. Right now, of course, Jacoby Brissett is going to walk into training camp the guy. It's the reason why he signed here. He was going to start this competition in the lead spot. Everybody knew that. Drake May was not going to make the gigantic leap that he needed to make in minicamp. Wasn't going to happen. Training camp, 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, you get to that joint practice against Philadelphia about the middle of August, then we might have a different conversation. But right now, Jacoby Brissett, according to your head coach, he's the guy. He is starting camp as QB1. Here was the coach on Drake May.
If Drake, and this goes to any position, if he comes out here and he lights it up, and once again, it goes back to the quality of reps, it could absolutely happen. Like, I sit here and tell you, like, coming out of the spring, Jacoby looks like the starting quarterback. Now, with that being said, he'll have competition. There's competition. Like, let's not forget about even Joe Milton. Let's not forget about Zappy. All those guys will have opportunities to go out there and be the starting quarterback in week one.
If he lights it up. If May lights it up, he can be the guy. Here's my question for you to start this program out. 617-779-0985. Again, it's 617-779-0985. Who do you think wins the quarterback job? We've spent a lot of time talking about Drake May. When should he start? When do you think he's going to start? Is it a bad idea to start him week one? I want to ask you, this May-Brissett competition, this quarterback competition, is the number one thing to watch out for during this camp. Who do you think ultimately wins the job? Do you think May leapfrogs Brissett as we get ready for the season to kick off? Who do you think wins the gig? 617-779-0985. Right now, July 23rd, 2024 at 7:07, I'm leaning Brissett for a number of different reasons. Brissett, of course, he's ahead on the scheme. He understands what Alex Van Pelt wants done. He gets it. He understands the verbiage. He understands the goals, right? And what they're trying to accomplish week in and week out. He's very comfortable with this scheme. He's very comfortable with this system. He is very comfortable with this coach. And so you have to give him the advantage in my eyes just off of that. I mean, we could talk about experience. Experience is one thing. But experience in the system that you're going to run is an entirely different thing. Brissett has run this offense before. And he understands Alex Van Pelt. He understands the mission. He understands what Van Pelt wants from him. The communication between quarterback and offensive coordinator is so much easier when you've had a prior relationship. So Brissett is ahead on the scheme. He's ahead on the language. I have to imagine, as Mayo told us today, right now, He is ahead in this competition, and he should be. Here's another thing. If you're the Patriots, after the last couple of years, after watching this brutal offense, this puke-inducing offense that we have had to sit through and watch the last couple of seasons, if you're the Patriots, don't you want your offense to start fast? And even if Drake May is doing well through camp, and even if he looks pretty good in the preseason, even if he plays pretty well in the joint practice, right? Are you really confident that you're going to be able to start fast with the rookie quarterback? Or are you more confident that you're going to start fast with Brissett? And here's the thing about Brissett. I have heard a lot of people besmirch the good name of Jacoby Brissett. Felger and Maz today, oh, they were at their best, weren't they? Felger all worked up about Brissett playing golf. How dare him? How dare you play golf during the offseason? You're supposed to watch film. Wake up, watch film. Go to bed. Wake up, watch film. Put a TV, put a monitor in your bathroom. Watch film while you're going to the bathroom. How dare you go golfing? Unbelievable. People keep talking about Brissett like he's a complete bum. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Jacoby Brissett is a top 10 quarterback, top 15 quarterback. I might not even tell you he's a top 20 quarterback. But what I would tell you is that Brissett is better than a lot of people give him credit for. And Evan Lazar, who does a great job at Patriots.com, he wrote a profile on Brissett going back months ago. When Brissett joined this football team, Evan wrote about what he did in 2022. Now, why is that meaningful? It's meaningful because back in 2022, who was coaching Brissett? Alex Van Pelt. Whose offense was he running? Van Pelt and Stefanski's. So this is why you look back at 2022. And back in 2022, when Brissett was starting for the Cleveland Browns, he was 8th in total QBR in the league, across the league. All 32 starting quarterbacks during the stretch when Brissett played, he was 8th in total QBR. He was 10th in EPA per dropback. Pro Football Focus had Brissett ranked 12th at quarterback with an 82.6 grade. Brissett was the 12th best QB during the stretch of him starting in Cleveland back in 2022, according to Pro Football Focus. In Cleveland's offense, scored almost 24 points a game, which was 11th in the league during that tenure of Brissett starting. Now, I'm not an idiot. I understand that it's different talent around Brissett. It's a different offensive line. I get it. But that's just to tell you that if things are put around Brissett that work, if he has legitimate NFL talent around him in a good offensive line, he is not an absolute puddle at the position. He's not. And I know some people want to keep telling you that, but he is not. He just hasn't been that guy. And when you think about the circumstances he's had to deal with, right? Andrew Luck retires. Boom. It's your job. Good luck. Deshaun Watson, off-field stuff. We all know about it. Gets that big fat contract from Jimmy Haslam, which was an absolute joke. $250 million, whatever it was, guaranteed dollars. Crazy. Brissett gets handed that team while Watson is kind of just hovering over him like the black cloud in the old cartoons. And he did a great job. I'm not telling you Brissett is great. That'd be silly. That'd be ridiculous. It'd be disingenuous. But what I am telling you is Jacoby Brissett is a good NFL quarterback. He's not a complete waste. Now, with that said, is his offensive line going to be good enough? It's a big-time question. And if I have offensive line questions, if those questions are not answered during camp, I don't feel super comfortable putting Drake May out there to start this season. We talked about it last week when I was filling in for Joe. It's not about injuries. It's about Drake May taking a step back in his process if the offensive line is not working in front of him. All of a sudden, does he start to lose that footwork, right? We've heard that he's progressed. Does he take a step back in the footwork? His mechanics get all screwed up. His brain gets sped up. That's what I would be concerned with. And I think the Patriots are going to be conservative. I really do. I think they're going to be conservative with Drake May's timeline. There really is no reason to rush. Why would you rush him out there? Well, I don't think any of us believe this is a playoff team. Why would you rush him out there? If Jacoby Brissett is playing well and he walks through camp and he looks good, why would you make that kind of change? Unless Drake May is going bananas. Unless he lights the world on fire. One last thing I would say before I get to you at 617-779-0985. I ask you, who do you think wins the quarterback job out of this camp? It's easier. If I'm Jerod Mayo, I'm Elliott Wolf, I'm Alex Van Pelt, I'm Ben McAdoo, is it not easier to go to Drake May eventually than start him too early and then feel like you have to bench him? That would be somewhat of a mess, wouldn't it? You start May because you think he's ready. You're not really sure. You're not 100% confident. You think he's ready, so you start him, and he's not ready. And he looks like a dumpster fire through the first 3-4 weeks. And you've got to now bench the guy and go to Brissett. It is much easier to bench Brissett and put May in than the opposite. So I think it's going to be Jacoby Brissett. That's who I think wins the quarterback job. Who do you think wins the QB gig? 617-779-0985. 617-779-0985. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray on a Tuesday. Alex Barth in studio starting at 8 o'clock to talk Pats. Speaking of Pats, some of them land on the PUP and NFI lists. We'll have the details next.
More Joe Murray coming up on the Sports Hub.
fills in for Murray on a Tuesday. Start the show off with a question. Who wins the Patriots QB1 gig out of camp? Brissett or May? 617-779-0985. By the way, put up a Twitter poll at Nick C Radio. Again, you can follow me at Nick C Radio. Put that question up. Option A, Brissett. Option B, May. Right now, very early. Brissett is leading with 58% of the vote. So swing on by and drop a vote in there. Who wins the Patriots QB1 gig out of this camp? Is it Brissett or is it May? At Nick C Radio 941. Used to be my old one. Now it's at Nick C Radio. Get rid of the numbers. Just don't throw numbers in there because you never know what's going to happen to the future. Also have some updates for you about PUP and, of course, the NFI lists. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, let's go out to Tom and Quincy. Hey, Tom.
Yo, what's up, Nick?
What's up?
Listen, we all as Pats fans better pray that Brissett wins the job and honestly holds on to it for the majority of the season. My only question about Brissett is the teams he played for prior. I mean, he played for Cleveland, did pretty well. He played for Indianapolis, so. But those teams, Cleveland had a great offensive line. And so Indy, not so much, but Cleveland had great receiving options, great running back options. And Indianapolis, he had a good running back and he had T.Y. Hilton. So it's going to be a completely different, feel for him. And I'm kind of hoping for the guy he can string it together, because if we just throw Drake May out there, no matter how much raw talent he has, he's going to get banged around. And if you lose confidence early, that could be it, right? So we don't need another Mac Jones situation. I always thought that Mac, he outdueled Cam Newton, but once the line kind of went down, he wasn't able to make his reads fast enough, and ultimately he lost confidence in himself. And if we throw Drake May, the same thing's going to happen. That's all I got.
All right, Tom, thank you. Appreciate the phone call. May's different, right? May is just unequivocally a different kind of quarterback than Mac. Drake May can actually create off schedule, off platform. His athleticism is a little bit better than Mac's. His frame, he's obviously a bigger guy than Mac. He's got a much stronger arm than Mac, so he can throw on the move and still make plays. So Mac was more limited than May is, just from a natural athleticism standpoint and gifts standpoint. Mac was never physically gifted. I mean, let's be honest. He was never that guy. He wasn't that guy at Alabama. He was certainly not that guy here. He was never going to be that guy. He was a pocket quarterback who had to survive with timing and skill players around him and use his brain to beat defenses. That's Mac. That's who he was when he was drafted. That's who he will forever be. So, yeah, when the pass rush gets to somebody like that, things can go downhill quickly like we saw. A pass rush can get to any quarterback and bother any quarterback. I have a little bit more confidence that May would be able to handle that adversity, but it's still a question mark, right? Now, as far as Brissett, you're dead on. I mean, Cleveland had a pretty damn good offensive line when he was playing there in 2022. Indy was all over the place with the offensive line. They had some good years, some terrible years. And I would say Brissett is just like every other, fringe starting quarterback. Any one of those guys. Any one of those fringe guys. The Gardner Minshews, the Brissetts, any one of those guys. Ryan Tannehill, the last year or two, who's still looking for a job now. Those quarterbacks are always going to play better and be more comfortable when they have better offensive line play and better skill position guys, because they don't have the natural ability like a Drake May that gets picked in the top 5. They don't have that natural ability to make up for certain things, right? So it's a legitimate question. If the offensive line is a mess, yeah, no doubt that could make Brissett look like one of the worst quarterbacks in football. But if we look at it from a baseline standpoint, and that's all we can do right now because we got to wait until tomorrow, we're going to wait until next week when the pads come on, all we can do is look at who these guys have been up until this point in their career. And Brissett is somebody who, when he's been given the time and he's had some guys to throw the football to, he's been okay. Again, not great, but he's been okay. I don't think Brissett is the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't. If he starts week 1, I don't think he's number 32 in the league. I think he's probably low to mid-20s, somewhere in that range. And so you hope that he's able to have an offensive line that protects him enough, the scheme helps him enough, and he's able to do enough things to move the football consistently. When you look at the baseline, Brissett is a better quarterback than Mac Jones was last year, and he is a better quarterback than Bailey Zappi and what Zappi was last year. The Patriots quarterback room right now is better than it was in 2023. And some people might disagree with that. I don't know how you can disagree with it. If you watch this team play football last year and you saw Mac and you saw Bailey Zappi and you saw some of those decisions they made, some of those throws they made, especially when Mac just was absolutely broken by Germany. By that game against the Colts, he was just mentally fried. That's as bad a quarterback play as you'll ever see that this team got last year. All right, let's jump to the PUP and NFI news. So this came out about a couple hours ago. The PUP and the NFI, these players are not cleared to practice. Mike Reese posted that. Evan Lazar posted, these guys can come off the list at any time during camp. So it doesn't mean that they're donezo through the entire camp, that they're going to miss the first month of the season, first 6 weeks of the season. It doesn't mean that. It just means right now they are not physically able to get on the field. They're not ready. They haven't been cleared. On the PUP, Cole Strange, not a surprise. This was expected. The reporting tells us that he'll be fortunate if he has a chance to get on the field by November-ish. We're probably looking at, mid-late November, if not early December for Strange, given the reporting. And at that point, are the Patriots even going to try to throw him out there? What's the offensive line look like? And we got to remember that Cole Strange was a Belichick guy. Who knows if Elliott Wolf and Jerod Mayo even want him? I mean, they drafted Layden Robinson for a reason. Big part of that was the injury to Strange. But this might be a completely wasted year. If you told me we never see Cole Strange play another Patriots game again, I would not be shocked by that. So he's on the PUP. Kendrick Bourne's interesting. Keep an eye on Kendrick Bourne. We're trying to figure out what is going to happen with him, right? Is he going to be ready by week 1? Coming off of the ACL. He had said during the Super Bowl that he was ahead of schedule. Doesn't seem that way. Maybe he was ahead of schedule back then, but he's not so ahead of schedule now. He's on the PUP. I'm not surprised. I would not be surprised if Bourne is on the PUP to start the year. I wouldn't be surprised if he misses the beginning chunk of the season. And this could open the door for Kayshon Boutte, Tyquan Thornton, and Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, I know 2 of those 3 names, most of you don't want anything to do with those guys. If you ask me, I'm out on Tyquan and Juju. I'm with most of you listening to this program right now. But it opens the door. Opens the door for Kayshon. Can one of those 3 guys impress in camp? Because if Bourne is going to start the year not ready to play physically, and if he's put on the list, he stays on this list, then you look at it and you got to figure out the wide receiver game, right? How many wide receivers are you carrying? Are you going to play 5? You're going to bring 6 to the active roster on Sundays? If you're going to go 6, then Juju and Tyquan and Boutte, maybe 2 of those guys make the team. If you go at 5, maybe one of them, right? Probably one of them. So Kendrick Bourne on the PUP. Sion Taki is also on PUP. According to Mike Reese, he got a scope to his knee. Doesn't sound too serious. But as far as camp starts, this might give somebody like Marte Mapu a shot to play a few snaps at linebacker. You got Giles Harris also. You got Raekwon McMillan. Can those 2 guys make the most of this opportunity? So Taki starts on the PUP. Jake Andrews is on the PUP. I mean, Antonio Mafi and Jake Andrews, those could end up being 2 completely wasted picks from the 2023 draft. Mafi looks like he's got a long way to go. Andrews not healthy. There were a lot of questions about Andrews when he was drafted, let alone right now. So Jake Andrews on the PUP, and Antonio Gibson is on the NFI. Don't know how long he's going to be out. Don't know what his injury is. Don't know what the problem is. NFI is he got hurt away from the football field somehow. So that's something to keep an eye on because this running back room for the Patriots is already thin. It's already thin to begin with. You got Ramondre, and then you got Gibson, and then open competition. So if one of Stevenson or Gibson end up not being physically ready to go, you start this year behind the eight ball at running back. So we have to keep an eye on Gibson. And this could be an opportunity for somebody like Deshaun Fenwick, the UDFA. He might be somebody who, pops up and does something because Gibson's out. So some of your updates there. 617-779-0985 is the telephone number. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray on a Tuesday. The latest on Devon Gottschall and Matthew Judon coming up.
Sports Hub headlines.
Red Sox have gone 0-4 since the All-Star break. They're back in Colorado tonight. 8:40 is that first pitch. Former Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray on this Tuesday. Joe was on Zolak and Bertrand earlier today, alongside Tim Cohn. How about this little tidbit? This is from Tim Kawakami from The Athletic. He had an interview with Kyle Shanahan on his podcast, The TK Show. And apparently, Shanahan talks about offering Bill Belichick a job to do anything that he wanted with the Niners, including defensive coordinator. And Bill politely told him, no, thank you. So if you thought that Belichick just was out of the NFL because he wasn't offered a job, no. That's not the case. He was offered a job by Kyle Shanahan, but it wasn't the job. And Belichick, he just wants one job, and that's head coach. Now, the big question is, as part of the head coach gig, does Belichick want full autonomy? That's the million-dollar question. And if he does want full autonomy, will a team be willing to give him that autonomy? We'll have to wait and see how that unfolds. Of course, that's next year. But just looking at what could have happened this year, imagine Belichick in San Francisco as the defensive coordinator. Could you imagine Kyle Shanahan, offensive coordinator, play caller, Bill Belichick, defensive coordinator, defensive play caller? I know a lot of people give Kyle Shanahan a bunch of crap because 28-3, and he deserves it. That was awful. But Shanahan is seen as one of the best, arguably the best offensive mind in football, one of the best play callers in football. If he's not the best, he's easily in the top 5. So you would have a top 5 offensive play caller to go along with the greatest defensive mind that football has ever seen in Bill Belichick. That would have been a powerful coaching staff, man. I don't know if you can get better than that. But Bill said no. All right, let's give you the latest on Devon Gottschall and Matthew Judon. They're both in the last year of their deals, respectively. They both have gone to social media in different ways. Gottschall directly bitching about his contract, not being happy. Judon more indirectly, more passive-aggressive with his approach. Here was Jerod Mayo earlier today on those two guys.
Yeah, look, the relationship is still good, at least from my perspective, and I know their teammates definitely respect them. Those are valuable pieces of this organization, and they've done a lot for us. And hopefully we can get something done, and those guys are here. I want them here. I think Elliott wants them here. The team wants them here. Those guys, there is a business aspect to everything, though.
I believe Mayo. I believe they want them here. I believe Elliott Wolf wants both of those guys here this season. Mayo's been honest. And some would tell you that he's been honest to his own detriment at times. But when they've come out and they've said, both he and Wolf, when they say, we want these guys, we're interested in keeping these guys, what have they done? They said they wanted to keep Duggar. They kept him. They said they wanted to keep Owenu. They kept him. So I believe Mayo. I'll take his word for it, that they want Gottschall and Judon here in New England playing football in 2024. Now, here's the thing. I'm sure they want those two gentlemen here this season at their price, at the Patriots' price. They don't want them here no matter what, because if that was the scenario, then we would be talking about Matthew Judon getting a new contract, and maybe he does get a new contract, but it already would have been done by now. Gottschall contract would have been done by now if those two guys got what they wanted. So, yes, I believe Mayo. I believe they want both of them here because it makes their defense better in 2024, but they want both of them at their price. That's how this works. Gottschall, he's got zero leverage. Interior defensive lineman, doesn't get to the quarterback, doesn't necessarily make a ton of plays behind the line of scrimmage, right? He's going to be 30 years old in November. I don't think Gottschall has a ton of leverage here. Judon, a little bit different. Judon plays edge, which is a critical position in the NFL. He is a very good and productive pass rusher, which is vital in the league. He is seen as a leader on the field and off the field. So even though Judon is going to be 32 in August and he's coming off that surgery for the biceps tear, I still think that he has more leverage than Godchow. So will these guys hold in? Will they be out there practicing starting tomorrow at training camp? Here's Mayo.
Just to follow up on Judon, Godchow, and anyone else, do you anticipate they'll practice? Like, that seems like a new thing where players hold in now.
Yeah. It's always the expectation if you're here, you're going to go out there and practice and you're going to compete. And that's what it's all about.
Devon and Judon. Does it feel like something will have to get done to keep them here?
Look, this is their first day back. All right. So, I mean, this is probably a question for tomorrow. At the same time, look, I'll reiterate, we want those guys here. And we're going to do everything possible to keep those guys. And I think it's good for the organization, and hopefully it works out.
The expectation is that they'll be practicing. Expectation. We can expect many things in life. Doesn't necessarily mean they come to fruition, right? So he can say that that's the expectation. We expect them to be out there. But if Godchow wakes up tomorrow and says, you know what, I really don't want to go out there on the field, then that expectation doesn't mean anything. So until we see them, we don't know. I believe Judon will be out there. Not so sure about Godchow. Godchow might push this a little bit. Judon has talked about it. He's gone on record. He has said that he learned from what happened last year when he was a hold-in. He has said he's not going to do that this year. So if he ends up holding in and doesn't hit the practice field tomorrow, he looks like a big fat liar. And I don't think he's going to want to look like a big fat liar. But we haven't heard Godchow say anything like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if Godchow's not out there. I would be surprised if Judon's not out there. Inevitably, I think they both play. You have too much to lose. NFL contracts, teams, ownership, they have almost all the leverage when it comes to these contracts in that league. They don't have to worry about it, right? If you sit out, you're just going to get fined. You'll get fined over and over and over and over again. And for somebody, if you want more money, if the issue is money, and that's why you're sitting out and quote-unquote holding in, if that's the point, then why are you going to do something that's going to get you fined and you're going to lose money every single day? Both guys will end up playing because they want a new contract. And if you don't play, all you do is kick the contractual can down the road, and then that doesn't prove much of anything either. And I think Judon will get a bump for 2024. Maybe he gets an extra year tacked on for 2025. I anticipate Godchow playing out the string, maybe with some incentives, maybe some of the money being guaranteed. 617-779-0985. It is a Tuesday night here on 98.5 The Sports Hub. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray. A report earlier today infuriated me. Find out why next.
You're listening to Joe Murray on 98.5. You're listening to Joe Murray on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
When you choose Blue Moon, everything but
place to put him. Got to throw strikes. Here's the 0-1. And a line drive, base hit, and that's a game winner. Tovar wins it to chase in a winning run here in the 12th inning. 9-8 the final on a walk-off for Colorado. His third hit of the game. Man. Well, that was one wild game. And the Red Sox have dropped 4 straight out of the All-Star break.
Yeah, and 3 or 4 of those games have been just like this, just good baseball games, and they came out on the short end of the stick, but that was one heck of a baseball game.
I stayed up to watch that crap. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray on a Tuesday. Skaz behind the glass. Quinnipiac Kevin as well back there. Alex Barth joins me in less than 10 minutes, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Alex will be in studio to talk Patriots. So we'll get back to that in a few. But I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes on the Red Sox. Awful start to the second half. Their bullpen has been a nightmare. They obviously need to acquire a high-leverage arm. Slayton, Martin, who knows if they're going to come back. It's been a disaster since the All-Star break. And I don't think that Cora has done a great job dealing with the bullpen. But they've had a chance to win 3 of these 4 games. They should have won 3 of these 4 games. If it weren't for the bullpen issues, that's precisely what they would have done. It's a short stretch. It's a 4-game stretch. I'm not losing my mind. I am not panicking just yet. But last week, Craig Breslow and Sam Kennedy, they had these public comments, okay? And it certainly sounded like, with these public comments, that they were a team that was pushing towards buying. Pushing towards buying. Now, I'll get to some of those comments by Breslow in a minute. But here's what I read over the last 24 hours that made me want to move furniture. Chris Cortillo of Mass Live, he wrote this on Sunday before the final Dodgers game of that series. Cortillo writes, according to an industry source, the Red Sox have yet to identify a definitive deadline plan. What? Come again? They have yet to identify a definitive deadline plan? Then we had Jeff Passan today of ESPN. Here's what he wrote about the Red Sox and what they're going to do at the deadline. Adding and subtracting. Oh, where have we heard this before? Passan writes, the ugliness of the sweep at the hands of the Dodgers over the weekend and a 12-inning loss to Colorado on Monday injected some levity into a Red Sox team that entered the break flying high. Pay close attention to this one line that Passan writes. There are dueling thoughts within the organization that run into direct conflict with one another. On one hand, the Red Sox have overachieved. So pushing some chips into the middle would reward a group that warrants such. On the other, they'll soon transition to a younger core, mentions Meyer, Anthony, Teal, and Campbell, all almost big league ready. And in the AL East, it pays to have one eye as much on the future as the other is on the present. The Red Sox will be busy. They just might be the sort to nibble on the margins both ways. I want to take you back now. Craig Breslow talking about picking a lane.
Is difficult at times on the field.
I'm going to pick a lane. We're going to pick a lane. That's Breslow just a couple of weeks ago. We're going to pick a lane. Now we're hearing from Jeff Passan, they might not pick a lane. They might try to buy and sell. As Passan wrote, they just might be the sort to nibble. Just a little bit of a nibble. Just a little bit of a nibble. Just a little one there. Quinnipiac Kevin, just a little nibble, buddy. Don't have to take the big bite. Just nibble on the margins both ways, according to Passan. So Breslow saying we're going to pick a lane. Passan says now as we get closer to the trade deadline, they're not going to pick a lane. Now, let's go back to Breslow, who was on Nesson before the All-Star break when he said this. Craig? Hello? Are you there, Craig Breslow?
The Red Sox with the best record in Major League Baseball, as you know, since the 19th of May at 30-18. Are you convinced this is a playoff team and the Red Sox have to add in the second half?
Well, I think we first have to start with crediting the players on the field, the staff. But yeah, I think this team has put themselves in a position where we have to take them seriously, right? Like, the job that they have to do is win as many games as possible, and they're doing that, and they'll continue to do that. Is my hope, it's my expectation, and we need to be thinking about opportunities for us to improve the club.
Your chief baseball officer says we're going to pick a lane, and then a week or two later he's on Nesson, the team-owned television station, and he's saying, yeah, we got to take this team seriously. We now have to take them seriously. Now, I know Breslow was criticized for saying, now you're going to take them seriously, which is fair. But Breslow's telling us we're going to pick a lane, and then right before the All-Star break, he's talking about, these guys keep winning. We got to take them seriously. Certainly sounds like your CBO wants to buy. Sounds like Breslow wants to add. Kennedy went out there publicly and talked about, we've got the money. We've got the money to add talent. What do you think's going on? We know what's going on. This is 100% John Henry. 100%. And it's ridiculous. He's looking for reasons to not spend. Breslow and Kennedy have gone public. They've gone on record saying, we've got the money, we're taking them seriously, and we're going to pick a lane. Now, as we get closer to the trading deadline, what happens? We start getting leaks. Now they're not going to pick a lane. Now they're not sure if they're going to buy. John Henry, folks. What was the line in the passing story I said to remember? There are dueling thoughts within the organization that run into direct conflict with one another. Yeah. Breslow and Kennedy want to add. They want to buy. John Henry continues to clutch his pockets and doesn't want any change to fall out. That's what's happening. If you spent in the offseason, John, where would you be? The Red Sox had two guys that wanted to be here, that did not get gigantic contracts. And the Red Sox, because of Henry, failed to get those guys here. Teoscar Hernandez and Seth Lugo. Put those two guys on this baseball team, and how much better are they right now? We wouldn't be talking about a right-handed bat. We wouldn't be talking about a starting pitcher. But here we are. And you're going to double down on your offseason mistake by not adding anybody to this baseball team. If that's what happens, I'm going to lose my freaking mind. The absolute worst thing that you can do is nibble at the margins both ways. Give me a break. Chaim Bloom did that. This team has nibbled at the margins both ways for the last, 3 years at the deadline? What are we doing? I'm not the first, I won't be the last, but honestly, John, sell the damn team. If you're not going to take it seriously, sell the team. Get out of my face. I'm done with you. Conflicting. Yeah, we know what's conflicting. Just gross. Alex Barth joins me in studio to talk Patriots in 90 seconds.
From the Town Clear Tire Studios, the only place to hear the local call of the game is right here. WBC-FM and HD Boston. Boston's home for sports. 98.5, the Sports Hub. Beasley Media Group station. Sports Hub headlines.
The Sox are 0-4 since the All-Star break. They're back in Colorado tonight. First pitch in about 40 minutes. Jerod Mayo met with the media today. Coach called Jacoby Brissett the starting quarterback, quote, as of right now, unquote. Also, according to Mayo, Devon Godchow, Matthew Judon, both present for training camp and are expected to practice. Jonathan Jones, he's expected on the field tomorrow after missing minicamp due to offseason surgery. More Pats news. Team plays Kendrick Bourne, Cole Strange, Shion Takitaki, and Jake Andrews all on the PUP list. Running back Antonio Gibson starts on the NFI list. According to Tim Kawakami of The Athletic, Kyle Shanahan offered Bill Belichick the defensive coordinator job in San Francisco, but Belichick politely turned him down. More NFL news. Speaking of the 49ers, Brandon Ayuk is going to be at camp. Amari Cooper showed up to camp in Cleveland after restructuring his one-year contract. Matthew Stafford also got a contract adjustment, and he has reported. You know who hasn't reported? Hassan Reddick, Jets defensive end. He's holding out. Celtics announced their preseason schedule today. It all starts in Abu Dhabi on October 4th against Denver. They finish up at Toronto on October 15th. Headlines brought to you by Safety Insurance, providing comprehensive coverage for your auto, home, and business. Ask your independent agent about safety. I'm Nick Cattles on Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Your next update, about 30 minutes.
Boston's first FM all-sports radio station. Let's go! All-sports radio. Boston's home for sports. Let's go! In the middle! 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Hour number 2 on a Tuesday night. Nick Cattles in for Joe Murray. Skaz and Kevin in the back. Joining me in studio, the one and only Alex Barth to talk some Patriots football. By the way, hello to the YouTube people. I'm awful at saying hello to the YouTube people. I always forget. So hello to those fine people out there in YouTube. Barth, what's going on?
Not much. Just, first day of school vibes over here, right? They didn't practice yet, but we were down there today. Jerod Mayo spoke, a couple players spoke, and this is it for the next 9 months. We're locked in on football.
Let me talk about Mayo here. Let's start there.
Yeah.
How you feeling about him as we're on the eve of his first camp as Patriots head coach?
So I've said this since they had all those introductory press conferences back in January, February, whatever it was.
Yeah.
When it goes, whether it's him, Alex Van Pelt, really this whole staff. I do think there's an understanding in the building of where they are at, and that this is a rebuild. They're coming from the ground up. They are going to have to punch above their weight in order to win some games and kind of work with the pieces they have, and this is not a finalized roster by any means. Now, understanding that and acting appropriately are two different things, and that's what we're going to have to see, because it's all well and good to talk about the process and, the long road ahead and all of that when it's July 23rd and you haven't laced them up yet, right? You haven't laced the cleats up. When it's October and they're 1-5, it's very easy to sing a different tune. So,
right.
It's easy to lay out the plan, super easy to lay out the plan and say we're going to do A, B, C, and D, and that's going to get us back to contention. It's another thing to execute that plan. So when it comes to Mayo, I do like a lot of what he's done so far. It's just a matter of, can he stick to that and execute it? And the only way we'll find out is as we go on.
I look around the league, and it's obvious there's a trend over the last several years, right? Owners are hiring younger guys to run their football teams. A lot of young head coaches, a lot of first-time head coaches getting gigs. And I generally feel like connecting with the players, like Mayo has talked about, is vital nowadays. Do you generally, when you look at what Mayo has said, right, connecting with the guys, establishing a relationship before getting to X's and O's, and I know Bedard said that he has heard at coach meetings, Mayo said that the top priority was to make the players feel comfortable. Do you agree with that approach?
I don't know about the top priorities to make the players feel comfortable, like the top priorities to win football games, but I do think there is something to be said for the modern era of athlete needs to be coached a certain way.
Yeah.
And a guy like Jerod Mayo, who was kind of in between, he's not necessarily that like Rodney Harrison, Teddy Bruschi generation, but he's not this modern generation either. Frankly, he played with both over the course of his career. He's probably a good guy to bridge the gap between that traditional setting and what players want. Now, again, it's easier said than done. But, yeah, I do think that connection with the players, that personal connection with the players, is something the staff is going to take seriously.
All right, let's move to the quarterback competition. I started the show tonight talking about the QB comp. I'm sure, I would hope that you agree that that's obvious to say that it's the biggest, most important competition of this camp. If Drake May can somehow leapfrog Jacoby Brissett, it's a huge deal for this team and its future. Going in, though, Alex, like how are you handicapping this? I'll go percentages, right? What's the handicap percentages for you, Brissett versus May?
So I'm kind of recalculating today because Coming in, I thought there was no
recalculation. We got a recalculation, Skaz.
I thought there was no shot May was going to play week 1. And I still think it's going to be Brissett, but Mayo said with some conviction that there's a chance May plays. Now, he has to really blow Jacoby Brissett out of the water.
Right.
But that's not a no. Like that, there is a world in which that happens. So the way I've kind of lined it up is it's not necessarily about week 1. I still think Jacoby Brissett's going to start week 1. I'm sure we'll get to the offensive line. That's a large part of the reason.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, and this goes back to being a player's coach, like if things aren't going well, and Drake May shows a lot in camp, Mayo's going to start hearing it from the leaders in that locker room.
Right.
Like, this kid gives us a better chance to win. We want him out there. We want to play with him. And to me, what this is about, it's not about week 1. It's about how much can Drake May close the gap where there's pressure on the coaching staff.
Let me ask you this. How big's the gap right now?
I mean, it's a pretty significant gap just because we haven't seen Drake May in pad practice. We haven't seen him with a live pass rush off of that, right? He's got to show in as close to game-like situation as possible, regular season games. So, like, preseason is going to be big. I think we're going to see him a lot in the preseason. You have 12 quarters of preseason football. I've had this discussion on the Catch-22 podcast.
Even with Zappy and Milton.
On Patriots.com. Yeah, so there's 12 quarters of preseason football.
Yep.
I've set for Drake May 6.5 quarters.
Really?
I think it might be over.
Really?
I really do, yeah. So part of that is I don't know how much Jacoby Brissett's going to play. I don't know how much he needs the reps. And I don't know how much Milton's going to play either. If the spring was any indication, he seems like a much more long-term project. But May's got to show he can do it when the lights are brightest. So preseason games, joint practices, fully padded practices, things like that. You know, right now, I think they probably have 6-8 weeks a leash, assuming May sticks to a normal schedule. But, like, can he get it down to a month? I don't think he's going to start week 4 because that's at San Francisco, and that's the most brutal game for whoever the quarterback is on the schedule. Cross-country trip against the best defense in football.
Right.
But, you know, if he really is a strong camp, yeah, within like a month, maybe people start getting antsy versus if he shows he has a ways to go, it's a little harder to make that argument.
See, it's interesting. You know, I know some people could hear what Mayo had to say today about Brissett and saying that he's, you know, clearly the guy coming out of the spring.
Right.
But there were a lot of caveats. There was
exactly
as of right now. What I hear as of right now, that's a head coach that's keeping this door open for May.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and Jacoby Brissett, I would be alarmed if Jacoby Brissett wasn't the starter today. That would be, to me, rushing Drake May, which is the absolute last thing they need to do. So Jacoby Brissett got most of the reps in the spring. He was fine. Like, it wasn't anything earth-shattering, but he was good. And as the veteran in that spot, yes, he should be the starter if they had to play a game today. They don't. A lot can change. Remember in 2021 when they drafted Mac Jones, first thing Bill Belichick said, his post-draft press conference, Cam Newton is our starter.
Yep.
First day of camp that year, Cam Newton is our starter.
Yep.
And he kept saying that really up until those last 2 weeks when Mac Jones, and again, this goes back to can he prove it in a setting where it matters, joint practices with the Giants, Mac Jones started to kind of separate himself. So that, to me, is what Drake May needs to do, something similar. Show not just the coaches, but the players that when we get in these kinds of situations, I'm the guy you want to be in the foxhole with.
All right, so I take it that you believe Brissett will start the year. He's going to win the QB job out of camp. Let me ask you this. I talked about this a little bit last week. If Drake May, let's say May plays better than Brissett, and he's ready, and the guys in the locker room are like, he's just better. And let's say that he's leapfrogged Brissett as we get ready for week 1. Do you start Drake May no matter what, if that's the situation? Or do you say he might be ready, but do I think other pieces of this team are ready?
That second one. And some of that is, and I heard you talking about it earlier tonight, and I've been saying this for months now. It's not as simple as, let's throw him in. What's the worst that could happen? It's once you put him in, Drake May, that's it.
Yep.
That's it. He is your guy moving forward. You cannot bench Drake May. You can't put him in and then realize, he's not ready. We're not ready. We got to get him out of there. We just did 2 years of this futzing around.
Yep.
I said futz with the quarterback depth chart there. And you see what it does internally and externally. You can't do that. You got to make a decision and stick with it. I'd rather give myself a little bit of cushion. And the other thing is, this is where the offensive line comes in. Can you protect him? Because the worst case scenario, I wrote about this a little bit. I'll have a Patriots mailbag coming out tomorrow morning on 98.5thesportshub.com. Somebody asked me something along these lines. The last thing you want is Drake May getting hurt.
Yeah.
Because he can't lose a whole season of development.
No.
And I know people are saying, well, if he's not playing, he's not developing. No, you can develop behind the scenes. But if you have, torn rotator cuff, broken leg, what have you, you can't really develop behind the scenes. You look what happened with the Colts with Anthony Richardson, who's a similar player in that he's more of a developmental prospect, lost an entire year of development, and that's a real question now in Indy. So the offensive line's never going to be perfect. If you're waiting for it to be perfect, he's not going to play. Certainly not this year, and probably not for another year or two. I'm not saying it has to be perfect, but you need to have some sort of baseline.
Yeah.
This is an offensive line that last year ranked at the bottom of the league in most major metrics, and they were still moving pieces around into October. And some of that's an NFL thing with the limited contact in training camp and limited preseason games. Like, you only have so many chances to evaluate these guys. A lot of teams are still figuring out their offensive line through September. But you need, Dante Scarnecchia used to always talk about the best five. And that doesn't necessarily mean your five best players on paper individually.
Yep.
It's what is the group of five players that is going to be the best unit. If you remember in 2021, Mike Onwenu was this breakout 2020, and everybody's like, he's great. They found this great guard or tackle or whatever. And then in 21, they had some injuries up front, and they could never really piece it together. And it ended up, they benched Onwenu. Ted Karras came in the starting lineup, and that five just worked. It just worked. They were playing well, and that's what they stuck with. So what I've kind of used as the benchmark is figure out your best five up front before you put Drake May in, because the blocking's not going to be great, but at the very least, you have some continuity. And there's value there because the communication element of it is a major hurdle. And if you can at least know he's communicating with the same guys every week, it takes something off of his plate. What you can't have is we get to week 5 and all the reporters were up there in the press box and they're going through pregame warmups and we're all typing out the tweet. This is the 5th offensive line. Drake May's played behind it in 5 weeks. Like that's setting him up to fail.
Yeah.
So figure out the offensive line, however good he looks. Get that figured out as soon as possible. It shouldn't be more than September. Get that figured out in 4 or 5 weeks. And then you have a real conversation about where Drake May is.
Yeah, I'm less worried about the injury than I am the process and him taking a step back. If you have him in a place where mentally he's set, his footwork is looking good, he's feeling good about himself, and then you throw him out there, I'm not worried about him getting hurt necessarily versus now he takes a step back with the footwork, he's rushing, he's speeding up. That's not what you want.
But an injury can be a part of that.
It could be. It could be. I don't want a 5-alarm fire in front of him, right?
Right.
If you have a decent offensive line, then and if he's ready, then you play him. But if you have a 5-alarm fire, you don't want to do it. 617-779-0985 is the telephone number. Any questions that you might have, Patriots-wise, for Alex Barth, he's in studio until 9 o'clock. Again, it's 617-779-0985. More Pats Talk coming up. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray.
More Joe Murray coming up on the Sports Hub.
And I think he's going to end here where his life started. I really think that. And also, it ain't $8 million. It's because that he's tired of being bounced around. And I think this kid, Drake May, is going to be a future quarterback for the next 5 years. But he enrolled he enrolled a problem with a brand new coach, a brand new management, and I think that the guy, it's not his fault that he has to inherit this great New England monarchy of 6 Super Bowls that he's thrown into, or any quarterback that has to get thrown into 6 Super Bowls.
Right, Paul. Let me jump in, but I appreciate the phone call. So, look, Jacoby Brissett signed a 1-year deal.
Yep.
I'm sure he doesn't love bouncing around as much. Patriots, though, they draft Joe Milton, so they have him as part of their whole developmental situation at that position. Could you see Brissett hang around for more than 1 year?
Probably not. I mean, you got to get things going with Drake May. And the reality is, Jacoby Brissett is a starting caliber NFL quarterback.
Where would you put him, by the way? I got him like low to mid-20s in the league.
Yeah, something starting with a 2. Something like that. But he can start. He can start.
I agree with you.
He can go somewhere and collect a paycheck, and he can do this for whatever team next year is going to draft a quarterback. He can go to the Giants, or he can go to the Titans, or he can go wherever, right? So, I don't know. Something went really, really right or really, really wrong if Jacoby Brissett's still here next year. It seems like a one-and-done kind of thing.
Unless it's QB2. I mean, if he's okay with being the backup to Drake May, then, if Joe Milton is not developing at the pace they want him to, I think Zappe's gone eventually here.
I'm sure Brissett would do that, but they'd still have to pay him like a starter. And are they going to do that?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. You could look at it and say, well, we'll pay him $7-8 million again next year because we still have Drake on his rookie scaled contract, so we're not having to spend a ton at the position. But you could also see, as we know, with Green Bay, we know the Wolf philosophy is, pretty much try to draft a quarterback every year if you can draft one. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. They go into next year's draft somewhere in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, and they take another swing at the position.
Right.
All right, let's go to Brian in Plymouth. Hey, Brian.
Hey, how's it going today?
Good.
Hey, I had a question for you guys. Why aren't the Patriots going after a guy like Donovan Smith, who gave up 0 sacks with the Chiefs last year? He was on a 1-year, $12 million contract. Why aren't they looking at some of these veteran 30-year-old players that had good years last year to kind of move pieces around?
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate the phone call. It's a good question. There are a number of guys out there. He brings up Donovan Smith. There's also Charles Leno, who's still out there. There's Humphreys, who's still out there. Of course, we've heard about David Bakhtiari trying to, come back from all of his injury issues. He thinks he's going to be healthy. Who knows? He's been banged up so much. But, when I look at it, Alex, I think from what I've read, and Greg Bedard, who's usually the wet blanket, he's actually been pretty optimistic about this offensive line, relatively speaking. And he's also been more optimistic about Chukwuekorfor than anybody else out there. I think they feel pretty good, and, they'll see. And if it's a disaster, maybe they pivot. Maybe they go to one of those veteran names. But for now, they look at Chooks. They look at, Anderson. They look at Lowe. They look at Caden Wallace. And they're going to see what they have there.
Yeah, I think on the veterans first, just because it's quicker, there's a tackle shortage, or really an offensive line shortage in the NFL right now.
Yep,
and
it's bad.
Right. The reality is if these guys could play, they'd be out there. The reason Donovan Smith only allowed 1 sack last year is because, first of all, he allowed 3, not 1. Second of all, the reason he allowed so few is because he was holding everybody in sight.
And you have Mahomes, who's able to scamper around.
That was part of it.
Sacks.
He was among the top in the league in penalties. He's just not as quick as he used to be.
Right.
David Bakhtiari's played 11 games in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Charles Leno was never that great to begin with, and he's older. As for the current offensive line, though, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I get really nervous. Maybe I'm still scarred by Marshall Newhouse, but I get really nervous about the whole right tackle to left tackle thing. That is a much, much tougher adjustment than people make it out to be. And if this sounds like me being a doomsayer or whatever, Chuks Okorafor said the same thing in the spring.
Yeah.
That it was tough for him. So you're playing with fire. I think anytime you do that, a guy with really no left tackle experience in the last 6 years, no left tackle experience in the pros, you're going to have at least one rookie starting, probably either Layden Robinson at guard or Caden Wallace at tackle. You're moving Michael Onwenu around again, so he can't get comfortable at any position. I really like David Andrews, but he's older. And what's his availability? And they don't really have a backup center. And that's the other thing. Let's say Chuks Okorafor doesn't work out. What's plan B at left tackle? As shaky as plan A is, there's no clear plan B.
Could be Anderson, I guess.
Where's Mike Onwenu playing? If he's at right guard, I guess Caden Wallace is your right tackle, but then who's the backup there? Right tackle's wide open with Cole Strange not expected to start the season. Too many questions. Too many questions for this time. And by too many questions we had last year, too many questions to feel comfortable.
I think I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm confident in Chuks. I got to see it to believe it. They put the pads on. We'll see. Bedard knows a hell of a lot more about offensive line play than I do. If he tells me that he thinks that Chuks has at least a shot, all right, I'll believe it. He has a shot to work out at left tackle. If that happens, we don't know. Maybe it does. But if Chuks does work at left tackle, I do think, that's a huge domino. Because the rest of the O-line, you could talk me into believing, okay, Chuks holds his own water at left tackle. I'm okay with Sidy Sow at left guard. That's where he played in college. I'm fine with that. Yeah. David Andrews, even though he's long in the tooth, he's still a top 10 center in football.
When he's playing, he's good. You don't have to worry about David Andrews.
And whether you play Onwenu at right guard or right tackle, I feel like he'll be at least good at either. So if Chuks can work out at left tackle, you might have to help only one offensive lineman, which you can do. You can easily help one guy up front. But that brings me to Onwenu. Where do you think he plays? Where would you play him?
I'd play him at tackle because it's a premium position. I want my better player there. I think they're going to play him at guard. I think they're going to play him at guard because they don't. I don't think they love any of their options at guard because they've brought in so many guys. I just don't feel like they gave so many guys a chance in the spring. I don't think they like their odds there where they're high on Caden Wallace. And look, I like Caden Wallace as a right tackle. I like him as a right tackle. I wouldn't play him at left like they were talking about.
Yeah.
I like him as a right tackle. And to your point, Nick, the general philosophy is you can cover up one spot.
Right.
One spot. And some spots are harder to cover up than others. If Chuks Okorafor works out, then great. You have Caden Wallace, who's a rookie. You give him some extra help, and you should be fine across the rest of the line. Even if you play Mike Onwenu outside, if Chuks Okorafor gives you something, all right, whoever it is at right guard or left guard if City goes back to the right side, whether it's Layden Robinson, whether it's Nick Leverett, whether it's Michael Jordan, whether it's Antonio Mafi, Cole Strange when he gets back, that's the spot you're covering up. But where it gets scary, and look, I don't necessarily, I don't mean to disagree with Greg that I don't think Chuks can play left tackle. I just think it's a pure projection, and that scares me. We haven't seen him do it. You're watching him play right tackle and talking about him playing left. It's like watching a guy play the flute, saying, all right, he's good at the flute, so will he be good at the saxophone? He might be.
Yeah.
He might just be naturally gifted, but these are two different things you're asking him to do. So then it gets into, well, if Chuks doesn't work out and you have this hole on the right side somewhere, things start to crumble very quickly, and that's assuming everybody stays healthy for all 17 games, which probably isn't going to happen.
No.
So.
I mean, Chuks is so fascinating because Elliott went out there and he immediately made that move. And so whether it was him or Scott Peters or somebody else, I'd have to imagine it's one of those two guys, Peters was here by then, I think. He made the decision pretty quickly. And Okorafor was the first move in free agency for them. And Elliott Wolf has said he believes he's left tackle. So, or it can at least play left tackle. If Wolf misses that evaluation and Chuks can't hold his water at left tackle, then you start to get concerned. And you think about Wolf being he's so decisive in that moment to bring in Okorafor and say, I envision him and his ability to play left side. If he doesn't get that right, it could quickly mean the downfall of his football team. And again, we're dealing with a lot of terrible offense. 617-779-0985 is the telephone number. 617-779-0985. If you have any questions for Alex Barth in the studio with yours truly, Nick Cattles, in for Joe Murray on this Tuesday night. We'll talk wide receivers coming up next.
Sports Hub headlines.
Talk wide receivers. Alex, let me begin here. Pop Douglas. Do you think some people are getting a little bit too carried away with Pop Douglas as far as what he might do this season?
I mean, I think he can be a really good player. I think he can be a 100-catch guy. The issue with him is going to be injuries. He's got to stay healthy, and that's more than just his size. And look, he's a smaller guy. He's listed at 5'8", 192. I'd take the under on that. But he's got to protect himself better. He's got to learn, and some of this goes to the fumble issues he had last year as well. He's got to learn when the play's over. And, for his own sake, just go down, get out of bounds, what have you. If he can do that, like he'll have room to improve. But it's tough to see him playing 17 games. Just guys that are built that way generally do not play full seasons.
Yeah.
And that's where you got to temper your expectations, and it puts a ceiling on who he can be as a player. Because then you get to, like I said, he can be a 100-catch guy. But do you want to target him that much, or do you want to maybe save him and turn him more into a situational player and get more bang for your buck? So
right.
I think he's a really good player, but it's just so tough to be a constant impact player at that size.
It is. It's really difficult. And by the way, just a moment ago, I might as well, since we're talking wide receivers, throw this at you. CeeDee Lamb. Adam Schefter reports, just tweeted out that CeeDee Lamb, who has been unable to land the type of contract extension that other wide receivers have, is not expected to report to training camp Wednesday with the rest of his team. So CeeDee Lamb is officially holding out. Now, I think the Cowboys will eventually pay him, but it's an interesting situation, Alex, because the Dak Prescott contract is looming, and they've got to make a big decision with Dak. And so, will they pay both guys? I would imagine they will, but you're Elliott Wolf. You're calling Dallas, right, just to check in here.
Yeah, they should make the call. Dallas is going to want a first-round pick, which the Patriots can't give up right now.
I agree.
That's when, for the spring of 2025, do they do what the Bengals probably should have done, franchise him and then trade him on the tag? And can you get him for a second-round pick next year? I'm a big fan of CeeDee Lamb. I think he can play. He has the skill set to pop Douglas, but he's just bigger. And he'd be a tremendous fit. And not just is he a good player, he'd be a tremendous fit for the kind of things Alex Van Pelt wants to do and what this offense is going to do. So I'd love for them to make that call. I think it's probably a little early now.
Yeah.
And like you said, I don't think Dallas is going to deal him. That team needs to be competitive this year. They cannot afford, Mike McCarthy cannot afford to even have the optic that they're in it for the long term. This quietly happened. They had the Red Sox offseason where...
Yeah, they did nothing.
Not only that, Jerry Jones had a quote. I don't remember the exact quote, but they were ripping on him. They were ripping on him at the Combine for it, where he said something about, we're going to have, our most aggressive offseason ever or something.
He went full throttle.
And then they did nothing. No, he had the full throttle moment. I'm going to see if I can find the quote, but he got called out for it during the Combine this year.
Yikes. So
the last thing they can do is promise a full throttle offseason and then trade their best offensive player.
And not keep their best offensive player on the team. And, Mike McCarthy, he's got Bill Belichick rumors, swirling around him right now. So that's a difficult situation he's in. I love Jalen Polk. I think Jalen Polk is going to immediately contribute to this football team. Would you agree?
Yeah, he should be able to do that. He looks... Everything he does is very professional. The way he goes about his routes, the way he goes about attacking the football, just in between drills. He's professional. He's going to be an NFL receiver. I think to what extent is the question. He may end up just being another one of these strong complementary guys, like guys they've had, like Kendrick Bourne. And there's nothing wrong with that. You still got to go out and get the top of the depth chart guys, CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, whoever it is, Brandon Ayuk. But he's going to contribute this year. I don't know that he puts up the numbers Pop Douglas did last year, but I think he'll contribute. Let's go to Dave in West Roxbury. Hey, Dave.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good.
So how are the Patriots that much different than Dallas this year? I mean, what has Elliott done besides draft Drake May, who is the third best quarterback, to improve the team a lot this year? Not much. He swung and missed on Ridley. They swung and missed on the moving up in the draft. They swung and missed. It seems on Ayuk. I mean, I guess they checked on it, but they're not going to go for him. So how is this team appreciably better than last year's team? They had the third pick in the draft, which means they had the third pick in each round of the draft. How are they that much better? What has he done?
All right, Dave, let me jump in. They actually had better picks than the third pick in each round of the draft. They had the second pick in the second round. It flips and flops between the top three teams or whatever. I think this team is better. I think this team is better. I think the wide receiver room is better. I think the quarterback room is better. I think the tight end room is better. And that's all relatively speaking. It was a pretty low bar. But I do think this team is better. I don't know if I'd say appreciably better, but they're better.
And I mean, as it relates to, what makes them different from the Cowboys, people are talking about the Cowboys as a Super Bowl contender.
Right, this is a rebuild.
Right. Nobody was expecting the Patriots. The Cowboys people thought were going to come out and, dominate the offseason. I don't think anybody ever expected that from the Patriots. That's not how I know there's the burn some cash comment, but realistically, that's not how Elliott Wolf works. Like you said, they're better on the margins. They're better set up for the future. I don't know, how much better are they in 2024 than they were in 2023. I think the rookie receivers will help. That's the one big difference. They're getting some guys back that are healthy. They still need a tackle. We'll see where Drake May's at. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they're leaps and bounds better roster-wise than they were in 2023 because I don't think they are. They're counting on internal growth from their draft class, which it's not, I don't know that we're knocking them for the draft class. Yeah, we haven't seen what they've done. Yes, Drake May was the third best quarterback. What are the odds? What are the odds the first two quarterbacks picked were the right picks?
Right.
We're assuming NFL teams suddenly have a 100% hit rate on quarterbacks. Let's calm down here. They're all wild cards. It's not to say Drake May is going to be good. They're all wild cards. They're better set up for the future. Nobody's sitting here saying that they're monumentally better than they were a year ago. But Jerry Jones promised his fans he was going to go all in. He hasn't won a Super Bowl since the 90s. It's a little bit different. The stakes where Jerry Jones is at versus where Elliott Wolf is at. That's a weird comparison.
Let's be realistic too here. When you look at the situation, this was a disaster. Okay, I think people overlook how much of a disaster the offensive side of the football was when 2023, that season in January, ended.
Right.
It was that bad. You had no left tackle. You had no right tackle. You had no tight ends outside of LaMichael Petway. You had, at wide receiver? Juju Smith-Schuster, Devontae Parker, Tyquan Thornton. Think about what was handed to Elliott Wolf. That's the first thing. Secondly, what was realistic? I love people that call in and they go, they haven't got their wide receiver one yet. We all understand that. But tell me who was out there to get. Calvin Ridley? We can have that back and forth. I think Calvin Ridley got way overpaid by Tennessee. We can have that tit for tat.
If you want to say they missed on Ridley, that's fair because you got to overpay those guys. Wide receivers probably hit the market.
Right. And so that's the one guy. Mike Evans stayed in Tampa. Michael Pittman stayed in Indy.
Yeah.
No one's been traded.
Ayuk's not getting traded.
No.
Ayuk, that's the thing in all this where we talk about the Patriots and they're interested in blah, blah, blah. There's zero incentive for the 49ers to trade Brandon Ayuk unless somebody gets insanely stupid. And if I'm going to get stupid, I'd rather overpay a guy dollars than overpay for a player with draft picks. Night and day difference, the impact there. So I'm not going to fault them for their out on Ayuk. Now, that doesn't mean they can't add a guy. A lot of these successful teams, what did they do? They added the wide receiver one in year two.
Yep.
You look at Miami, you look at Philly, you look at Buffalo, you look at Houston, a number of them. Let's see what happens next spring when DK Metcalf wants a new contract and Seattle's hitting the reset button. When Terry McLaurin wants a new contract, and, they just gave a bunch of money to Brandon Ayuk, so they can't afford to pay him. T. Higgins is going to be available, right? You can't miss the boat on a wide receiver. I've been saying this. They need to add a wide receiver, and they can't wait too long. Last time around with Mac Jones, they waited too long until the window shut, and they never did it. You don't want to do it too early either and force a bad move.
Right.
It's about threading the needle.
Yeah.
But the one thing I can tell you, the wide receiver market in this league right now, the wide receiver talent is as deep and oversaturated as it has ever been with the 7-on-7 leagues in the wide open college game. Youth football is just churning out elite wide receivers. And the reality is all these guys, when they get to year 3, want a new contract. And only about half the teams are going to give it to them. Brandon Ayuk's a really good player. There will be other opportunities to get a guy like Brandon Ayuk again next year, free agents or pending free agents who might want new contracts. DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin. If they miss on Brandon Ayuk and the result is them getting DK Metcalf, that's a win. Metcalf's a better player. And talk about a perfect fit for Drake May. So they don't need to rush to get the receiver. There is going to be a point where, yeah, you got to do it. You got to make the move eventually, and they can miss the window. They have at least one more offseason, though, before they have to do it. Giving up a first-round pick, which is probably what it's going to take to get Brandon Ayuk right now, when that ends up being the third, fourth overall pick, and you realize just how screwed you are without a real left tackle, and Will Campbell from LSU sitting there on the board, that Brandon Ayuk trade suddenly isn't going to look so great when he can't put up numbers because the quarterback doesn't have any time to throw the football.
Cattle's in for Murray. Alex Barth in studio with me for one last segment. It's in or out next.
What's it gonna be, McFly? Are you in or out?
You're listening to Joe. You're listening to Joe Murray on 98.5. You're listening to Joe Murray on 98.5 The Sports Hub. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Are you in or out? Gotta know without a doubt. I'm the one you need for a dirty deed. I'm the best. Success is guaranteed.
Ah, yes. In or out? On this Tuesday, Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray. Alex Barth with us for another handful of minutes. So we're going to do a little bit of an NFL version of In or Out with Skaz. Take it away, my man.
All right, gentlemen. Yes, we are, as Alex Barth said, on the eve of 9 months of consecutive football. Something I think we're all looking forward to. Yeah.
So happy.
If anybody's trying to do the math on that, I count through the draft.
All right, well, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
Why not?
Of course you count through the draft.
Of course.
Why wouldn't you?
All right, so we'll start broad with some NFL in or outs. But Kirk Cousins moved teams this offseason to the Atlanta Falcons. Are you guys in or out on Kirk Cousins getting the Falcons to the playoffs?
In on the Falcons making the playoffs. Either the quarterbacks can get them there. I'm not totally sure on Kirk Cousins. Torn Achilles, that's tough to come back from. But even if he can't, I like the Michael Penix pick. I know I'm alone on that
I hate
island.
that pick.
Here's the thing.
That pick.
How often do we rip teams for not managing the quarterback position correctly?
But he's like 28 years old.
He's 24. They saw an opportunity to get a good quarterback. They got a good quarterback. If Kirk Cousins was on year 2 of a 5-year deal instead of year 1 of a 4-year deal, people would hail it as brilliant.
You bring in Kirk Cousins because you're in win now mode.
Why can't you also care about the future?
You can care about the future in the future. Draft a quarterback in the future.
You're not going to have a chance.
Okay, great. So when Kirk Cousins is done, Michael Penix at 28 years old will be able to have his rookie season.
Isn't that what the Packers are doing?
His first year.
They're like the darling.
Jordan Love's wasn't 28.
Jordan Love's an older prospect.
I hate that
Michael
pick.
Penix also is not 28.
Jordan Love is 25. He's 25 after sitting for 3 years.
Michael Penix just turned, he's entering his age 24 season. So Kirk Cousins plays 2 years. He'll be a year behind Jordan Love.
He's on Social Security. It's ridiculous.
You're thinking of Bo Nix.
No, I'm not. I'm thinking of Michael Penix. He's older. He's older. Next.
I love it already. All right, since Bo Nix was mentioned, are you guys in or out on the idea that the Chiefs will have actual competition in the AFC West this season? Harbaugh now in there, Sean Payton in his second year. Do the Chiefs have competition in the AFC West?
No.
It's a shame. They could have if the Chargers hired the right coach, but they didn't.
Who would you have hired?
Not Harbaugh, I'll tell you that. Vrabel, maybe.
Harbaugh guy?
Gotten somebody offensively. What's his name? Johnson, the QB coach in Houston, I think would have been a really good fit there. I maybe would have gone after even Bobby Slowick, the OC, if he was going to leave. I would have got somebody to revamp that offense with Justin Herbert, not somebody who's going to run the ball 45 times a game.
Yeah, I don't think the Chargers will be there this year, maybe next year. Give them a year or so. There's some pieces. I do. Look, offensive line. That Chargers offensive line is going to be ridiculously good. They're set at tackles, better than any team in football. But a lot of questions there outside of Herbert and that offensive line. The Raiders are the Raiders. I believe it when I see it. And, that's
out.
All right, another quarterback that moved this offseason was Russell Wilson.
Out.
Out.
Next question. Out.
So you guys both think Justin Fields will be starting for the Steelers?
At some point, yes.
At what position?
Oh, here we go.
I think he will. But I need to know what position if we're limited.
So are you in or out on Russell Wilson starting more than 10 games for the Steelers?
Out.
I'm in.
Out.
I don't think
Shout out to him for Sierra, by the way, but out.
I think he'll start more than 10 games. I don't think they'll be pretty. I don't think he'll deserve those starts, but they're not going to bench him. It's just going to be a mess. Like, he's going to play. It's not.
Tomlin's going to hold on to him to the bitter end.
Isn't this what just basically happened in Denver?
Yes.
Until they finally pulled him at the end of the year? So, no, he'll start 10 games. They won't be good, but he'll start 10 games.
Washed. Wiggity washed.
I don't disagree with you there.
All right, heading to the AFC East for this one. One of the big, national storylines. Big storyline. Aaron Rodgers returning, coming off another injury. We'll just say the New York Jets in general this season. Are you guys in or out?
I'm in. I know I just said the thing about the Achilles with Kirk Cousins, but if Rodgers is starting from a much higher floor than Cousins was, and he just needs to be decent. That's such an impressive roster. Now, they'll probably lose their first game in the playoffs knowing Rodgers, but I think they'll get there. So I guess in.
I'm out. I see the roster. The defense is really good. Rodgers and all that, but Rodgers, I'm just irked by him. And he can absolutely implode that locker room. The whole, it's not mandatory minicamp. It's just part of OTAs. It's just, no, dude, you missed mandatory minicamp. Just admit it. Be accountable. He can't be accountable.
Those guys seemingly love him, though. He's like a cult hero in that locker room. I'm not saying it's right, but remember like the reception
do they really
he got
love him
last year?
Do they really love him, or are they just saying that because they know that he's the one that makes the world go round?
At a certain point, does it matter?
It does to me.
I don't think he got quite the reception. Also, like some of the other guys in that locker room might be weirdos too. So
going to Egypt, skipping mandatory minicamp to go to Egypt. He couldn't pick any other part of the calendar from January through June. No, he had to pick June. He's been in the league for like 20 years. He knows when camp is, when minicamp is. Egypt. I got to go see the pyramids. Oh, you couldn't do that at 45 years old? You had to do it right now? This summer. You had to do it right now. And then you got the, fakakta reasoning of like, oh, well, it's because you had to look forward to something because you got hurt. Wow, really? It's like when I was a kid, I had braces and my mom got me like a box of baseball cards and ice cream. Like, oh, so you had to look forward to something. You tore your Achilles. How about a trip to Egypt, Aaron? Yeah, I'll do it. So he couldn't do anything else from February till June. He had to go to Egypt.
Sure, he was just trying to figure out how they built the pyramids. I'm
just
sure
BS.
He's got some takes on that.
So there you have it. In or out with Skaz. Alex Barth in studio. Alex, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it, man.
Anytime.
I was like, over the weekend, I was like, I got to get Alex in studio. Text Louth. I said, can we do Alex in studio? He's like, if he's got the time. Alex said, I got the time, even though he's worked like 13 hours today. He's like, I got the time. Talk football. I'm in. Night before training camp.
Anytime.
So Alex goes home and finally goes to sleep for a few hours. We're going to continue to roll along here. Cattle's in for Joe Murray on a Tuesday. How am I feeling about Jerod Mayo on the eve of camp? My answer coming up in 90 seconds.
From the Town Fair Tire Studios, Celtics, the Patriots, the Bruins, and the Revolution play here. WBC-FM and HD Boston 98.5, the Sports Hub, a Beasley Media Group station. Sports Hub headlines.
It's early in Colorado. Don't get too excited, especially since what's happened since the All-Star break. But Skaz, the Red Sox are up 3-0 in the top of the second in Colorado. Tyler O'Neill went deep with a 2-run home run. Rafael Devers with an RBI double. Jerod Mayo met with the media today. Coach called Jacoby Brissett the starting quarterback, quote, as of right now, unquote. Also, according to Mayo, Devon Gottschall and Matthew Judon both present for training camp. They are expected to practice. Jonathan Jones told the media he is going to be back on the field tomorrow. He missed minicamp due to off-season surgery. More Patriots news. Team plays Kendrick Bourne, Cole Strange, Sion Takitaki, Jake Andrews on the PUP list. Running back Antonio Gibson is on the NFI list to open camp. Kyle Shanahan told Tim Kawakami of The Athletic that he offered Bill Belichick pretty much any job that he wanted with San Francisco. I would imagine any job that wasn't Shanahan's job, including defensive coordinator. Belichick said thanks, but no thanks. More NFL news, bunch of it. CeeDee Lamb not reporting to Cowboys camp during his contract dispute with the team. Brandon Ayuk is at 49ers camp. Amari Cooper is also at Cleveland camp after agreeing to a restructured one-year deal. Matthew Stafford got his contract restructured. He is showing up to Rams camp. Meanwhile, Jets defensive end Hassan Reddick, I don't know if he's in Egypt, but he's holding out. Celtics announced their preseason schedule today. First game is October 4th against Denver in Abu Dhabi. Last game on the docket, October 15th at Toronto at Scotiabank Arena. Headlines are brought to you by Awaken 180. Take strokes off your game by taking pounds off your frame with Awaken 180. How many birdies can you uncover? Awaken180weightloss.com. I am Nick Cattles on Boston's home for Sports 98.5 The Sports Hub. Your next update is at 9:30.
Boston's best sports talk. There's an app for that. Download the Sports Hub app for loads of stuff. Absolutely free. Connect with the shows, get podcasts, and more. Get it where you get your apps. Or at 985sportshub.com.
It's very high. Hold on one second. This right here is Felger's seat. Now, I believe this is Felger's seat. If I could be wrong, but it was where Felger sat. And I'm going to sit here for the YouTube people. Look how high I am. Look at this.
Is this like a TV thing for the angles, maybe?
Break the mic stand. Look at how high I am. Is this like a power thing for Felger?
Looks like you're almost sitting in a high chair.
This is ridiculous.
Way up there.
I can't do this. It's madness. Felger's like, I'm more powerful than you are. A higher chair. Sit very high. Look down upon all of you. From Nantucket and then in studio. That's how I roll. Third hour of the radio program. Thanks for joining us. As always, here on 98.5 The Sports Hub. That's Skaz. I am Nick. Quinnipiac Kevin also behind the glass, interning for the show tonight. I'd like to thank Alex Barth for jumping in for an hour in the studio. Fantastic stuff from Alex. One of the best around here talking Patriots football. And I want to talk about Jerod Mayo. We are on the eve of Mayo's camp debut as head coach. And he has talked about the top priority, at least to start, is player relationships. He's talked about making a connection. And he's having these 11 a.m. practices instead of earlier in the morning, right? He's cutting days shorter. I thought it was a great answer today that when he was asked why the Patriots are starting practices later, he said he did not want to do the meetings at night. Makes a lot of sense to me. He's cutting the day shorter for the guys, right? So you're not going from like 9:30 a.m. until 6:30 p.m. It's you show up in the morning, you go through the meetings, you take from the meetings what you take to the field. And, some guys might have issues retaining information. So having meetings the night before or the evening before might not work out as well. So I think it's pretty smart, but it falls in line. It falls in line with everything that Mayo has talked about. And Elliot Wolf had said they're not going to be as hard-ass, right? He said that in one of his first, if not his first press conference with the media. Greg Bedard has come out and said, Mayo told coaches in coaching meetings when he first met all the coaches that one of the top priorities was to make the players feel comfortable. So here's my question for you. It might be simple. It might not be simple. How do you feel going in about Jerod Mayo? We talked about the hiring. We talked about the process. I was fine with the hiring. I was not fine with the process. Did not like the idea of putting it into Mayo's contract that as soon as Belichick was gone, he would just be promoted. I did not like that. But here we are on the eve of Mayo's first legitimate training camp as a head coach in the NFL. And I ask you, how do you feel about Mayo going in? 617-779-0985. 617-779-0985. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray. Now, we all have to understand there is going to be a learning curve. Nobody just jumps into this job and is just great right away. At least not many are. So there's going to be a learning curve. And Mayo admitted as much with the media today.
I mean, look, Stacey got on me already about some things I said, so I'm trying to do the right thing, Stacey. No, in all seriousness, though, it is about, look, I'm not going to sit up here and act like I have all the answers. And once again, there are people in my circle. I have like a personal board that, I lean on those individuals for guidance and look, I am going to make mistakes. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm just the most perfect guy. I will make mistakes, and I will learn from those mistakes because I am not a repeat offender type of person.
3 observations. Number 1, he says look a lot. Number 2, he has a personal board. Skaz, do you have a personal board? Is it like a personal board of directors that you go to?
I do not. I wish I could say I did.
Like, I'm getting offered this night job. I got to get my board together, though, before I make a decision.
My personal board is intern Kevin right now. That's as far as it goes.
The third thing, though, that I take from that is some humility. I love that answer. Hey, everybody, I'm going to screw up. I'm going to screw up. I'm not flawless, not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. And that's the honest truth. He is going to make mistakes. Every coach makes mistakes, especially when it's the first time that you're on the job. And we should anticipate mistakes from Jerod Mayo in his first year. The $1 million question is whether or not he's going to learn from those mistakes. And he's telling us today, I'm going to learn from those mistakes. I am not a repeat offender, as he put it. So how do I feel about Mayo? I'm cautiously optimistic. No guarantees, but I'm cautiously optimistic for a number of reasons. Number one, I like delegating from head coaches, top people in organizations. I am a big believer, whether it's the president of the United States, it's a head coach in the NFL, it's a program director in radio, whatever position you want to talk about, I am a big believer in hiring the right people and allowing those people to do their job. And Mayo has said, and people have said about Mayo, he's going to be a CEO type head coach. And I don't mind that. I don't mind the head coach not trying to do everything. I don't mind the head coach saying micromanagement is not what I think is the way to run this thing. It's not the way to run the shop. Micromanagers bother me. I don't know if any of you have had bosses that were micromanagers. They have to know everything. I don't like that. I don't like micromanagement. So the CEO approach, if Jerod Mayo is going to focus on the big picture thing within the game, the big picture about this training camp and how the overall operation is running, and he's going to trust the guys that were hired to do their jobs. He's going to trust those guys to do their freaking jobs. I like that. Let DeMarcus Covington run the defense. Let Alex Van Pelt run the offense. Scott Peters, Robert Kugler, offensive line. You guys got this. Delegating the CEO, letting people work underneath you that you hired to do their jobs. I love that approach. I'd also bring this up because a lot of people are concerned about how young Mayo is and he's inexperienced and all of that. And there's no denying that. I mean, he could work out tremendously or he could be an abomination. We don't know how it's going to go. But when you look at younger head coaches, the younger head coach model, I said this to Alex Barth last hour when he was in studio. Owners are hiring young head coaches. That's what they're doing. 9 of the 14 playoff teams last year were led by a head coach that was 50 or younger. I'll say it again. 9 of the 14 playoff teams last year, their head coach was 50 years old or younger. 7 of those 9 playoff teams had a head coach younger than 45. This is not new. This is not unusual. This is not bad. Young head coaches are all over the place in the NFL. Not all of them work out. But 9 of the 14 playoff teams were led by younger head coaches last year, which tells you younger head coaches, they do work. They have better energy. They communicate with the younger players, the younger generation. The communication is better. And when you communicate better, the trust is there. The relationship is there. Guys want to play for you. Younger head coaches could be more open-minded, more outside the box thinking. Younger head coaches might understand work-life balance just a little bit better. Look at what Mayo's doing, right? I don't need you here all day. You come in, we do the meetings, practice, go home. Come back the next day. Meeting, practice, go home. Doesn't mean that Mayo is going to be a big softy on these guys. Minicamp practices weren't easy. But just because he's young, just because he's an inexperienced head coach, doesn't mean that he can't work out. We have several examples in the NFL of young, inexperienced head coaches working out. Now, some of those young coaches have better rosters than Mayo has. That's obvious. But we also have to understand, acknowledge, and appreciate that this is a rebuild. This team is going to be led by its defense. That is Jerod Mayo's wheelhouse. If he and DeMarcus Covington have this defense cranking and ready to go week in and week out, and he allows Alex Van Pelt and Ben McAdoo and those guys on the offensive side to work with those players, I think that's a fine plan by me. And let's not overlook the fact that Mayo learned from the GOAT. he learned from the greatest of all time. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm looking on the bright side. I believe that Jerod Mayo can be a good coach. What are your thoughts? We're on the eve of training camp. Jerod Mayo's first training camp as an NFL head coach. My question for you, how are you feeling about Mayo as we get ready for this season? 617-779-0985. Again, 617-779-0985. I'll get your reaction on Mayo. Also up next, we'll discuss the offensive man of mystery.
More Joe Murray coming up on the Sports Hub.
77 on Twitter, at Nick C Radio. Number one way to tell a micromanager is someone who tells you they don't like to micromanage. Is that true? People who tell you they don't like to micromanage end up micromanaging a lot. Could be onto something. Like they're just projecting, right? They're projecting themselves upon you. I don't like micromanaging. That might be true because I don't know if it's micro. Skaz, would you call me a micromanager of the radio show when I fill in, or am I just kind of like tedious and methodical?
I wouldn't call it micromanaging, no. You have a rundown? I mean, prepared is what I would call it.
Okay.
You're prepared.
Because some might look at it and go, this guy. I mean, I was a program director for a year out in Sacramento. I don't think I was a micromanager. At least I hope not. Now I'm like, thinking about this deeply.
Sounds like this guy could be projecting as well.
Damn you, Jeff. You got me thinking now, man. My micromanager. By the way, we started the show talking about quarterbacks, who wins the gig out of camp. So far, 71% looking at Jacoby Brissett. So many people believe it's going to be Jacoby Brissett, your starting quarterback, out of camp. All right, let's hit a couple of phone calls, then I'll get to the offensive man of mystery. Let's go to Connor, Long Island. What's up, Connor?
Hey, really appreciate you taking my call. I just wanted to touch on a few things, get your opinion. As you know, the Patriots reported to training camp today. You mentioned the current quarterback situation. Jerod Mayo has basically come out and said that Jacoby Brissett is going to be the starter over Drake May. Now, with that being said, at any point do you see Drake May taking over? Thank you so much for taking my call, and as always,
thank you, Connor. It was a really good phone call.
Until the end.
Nah, waiting until the end to drop that was perfect. It was perfect. It's a good call. Trolling at the end, I like it.
Surprised you didn't ask about Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I'd be worried about my own quarterback situation there, Connor. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it when you're old enough to smoke it. Drake May will end up starting for this team. Yes. He will start for this football team this year. When? When he's ready and when the offensive line is ready. As long as the offensive line is not a 5-alarm fire, as soon as he is ready to play, I'm playing him. Quarterback skews. Let's go to Matthew in Boston who wants to talk about Drake May. Hey, Matthew. Hello, Matthew. Matthew. 3, 2, 1. Call us back, Matthew. I want to talk about the offensive man of mystery here for a couple minutes. Javon Baker. Now, I loved the pick of Javon Baker. Big play guy, is capable of playing the X at receiver, right, which is what the Patriots need. He's got plenty of confidence, obviously. And just imagine, this obviously might not happen. Both guys might end up failing. But could you imagine a world where Jalen Polk and Javon Baker both hit? It's not crazy. The Packers have done this. Look at the Packers right now. Look at that wide receiver core. All the young guys. I mean, they've done a tremendous job. Gutekunst has done a tremendous job at drafting receivers over the last couple of years. He has stocked those shelves. And now you've got Jordan Love, who took his time to develop, and it's all hitting at the right time. If you hit on both Polk and Baker, that changes the dynamic of this football team. I mean, imagine if both of the rookie receivers contribute. We walk away and we say, they're legitimate NFL receivers. They're guys that can help right now. It would be so huge. It'd be so huge for this team. It'd be so huge for Drake May's development. But I have no idea what to expect from Javon Baker. As much as I love the pick, it's been a weird start. The social media stuff, right? The social media posts, the IG videos. Some of the things he said during his call with the media. Immediately, eyes wide open. Oh, okay. He's pretty confident. See, the social media stuff. Then it led into, because of the social media stuff, then you had Mayo come out having to answer for Baker in what he said. And Mayo told everybody, look, don't really have a problem with him saying what he said, but now he's got to back it up. Tyler O'Neill with another bomb, and this one's like 700 feet. My goodness. He got to back it up, is what Mayo said. Because if Baker is going to talk about it but not be about it, the guys in the locker room are going to know that. They're going to know. Oh, he's talk. Yeah, 465 feet. That was a bomb. He's not going to back it up. That locker room will know, and he'll be seen as a fraud. He will be outed as a fraud if he doesn't put it together on the field. So you had the social media posts. You had Mayo saying what he said. And then Baker gets hurt. Andrew Callahan of the Boston Herald reporting over the last 24 hours that it was a fractured finger or a fractured thumb. So, he gets hurt. He's not out there at minicamp doing much of anything. He's a fourth-round pick, which does not guarantee playing time. He's got some competition at X, Jalen Reagor, KJ Osborne, Tyquan Thornton. So I have no idea what to expect from Javon Baker. Does Baker end up being better as an idea than he is as an actual player? Sometimes we have that, right? Most of the time we have that with draft picks, no matter what the sport is. We all get worked up. We all break down the draft. We talk about it. We get excited for these guys. And then eventually we say, better as an idea than an actual player, right? The vision was better than the actuality. I hope that's not Javon Baker because, I loved the pick. And I hope he puts it together starting with training camp tomorrow. He was out there. He was catching footballs. There are pictures on social media from the Patriots showing Baker catching the football. So he's healthy. He's healthy and he's ready to go. And because he missed minicamp, this is a huge moment for him. He's got to get off fast, right out of the gate. He's got to be ready. So we'll see. Does Javon Baker end up being better as an idea than a player? Fascinated to watch how it unfolds. Let's go to Eric in Rhode Island. Hey, Eric.
Yeah, Carlos, thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to back up your point about Mayo, the coach, being cautiously optimistic about him. I think I'm more optimistic about him. I feel like being a former player, captain of defense, I feel like he could be a good head coach in his league. He's a very smart, intelligent guy. Will learn from his mistakes. He'll learn from that. And then I feel like he relates to the younger generation a lot better than Bill did. I love Bill, but it's time for something new, and I feel like he could be a good head coach.
All right, Eric, thank you. I appreciate the phone call. I'm cautiously optimistic. I think Mayo is a very smart guy. Because he was a former player, he understands how players think. I tend to agree with a lot of what he has said. Now, is the execution there? We don't know. Is the execution going to be there by Mayo? We'll have to wait and see. Will some of these mistakes that he makes be fatal? Will he not learn from them? We don't know. But I'm cautiously optimistic. 9 out of the 14 playoff teams last year had a head coach 50 years old or younger. 9 out of the 14. I'm not a mathematician, but that's more than 50%. 7 of those 9 were younger than 45. That's where the NFL is going. The NFL is not going towards 65, 70-year-olds being head coaches, 75-year-olds being... That's not where the league is headed. The Sean McVay hiring really kicked it into gear. McVay was like 30 when he got hired? The McVay hiring really started this thing and got it in motion. And now you look at McVay, you look at Shanahan, you look at Mike McDaniel, you look at DeMeco Ryans. Look at all the hirings this past offseason. Look at how many guys who are, 50 years old or younger that got hired in the last coaching cycle. Like, that's where the league is going. It doesn't mean that Mayo's going to work out. He might be terrible. But he might be really freaking good. I don't think landing on Mayo is some crazy idea for the Patriots. The process, I didn't like. The process, pretty crazy. But landing on Mayo, Mike Vrabel was really the only guy out there that I would have sat down and said, okay, I would have taken Vrabel over Mayo. But that's if Vrabel was okay with not, being heavily involved or running player personnel. That's where the league's going. Younger head coaches, man. That's what's happening. They don't all work out, but enough of them have worked out that it makes sense to do what the Patriots are doing. We'll see if Mayo's one of those guys. 617-779-0985 is the telephone number. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray on a Tuesday here at 98.5 The Sports Hub. Coming up, a behind-the-scenes look at Giants, Patriots, Draft Day trade talks.
Sports Hub headlines.
Tyler Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray on this Tuesday. Skaz, you going to the Sammy Hagar show?
I will not be at the Sammy Hagar show.
I know Sean Silver's going.
Yes, Sean Silver was very excited for the Sammy Hagar show.
Was doing the post-game show with Sean after Game 2 of the NBA Finals. He brought it up that night.
So he's been waiting.
Yeah, that's how excited he was. Like he brought up Sammy Hagar tickets after Game 2 of the NBA Finals. Like, all right, man. You're all in, huh? He's all in. And then he explained. He said, well, grew up listening to Van Halen and a little bit of Hagar. And I guess he and his buddies are going out for the night, and they all have kids, so it doesn't happen often. So then I understood. It's like, all right, like you're gonna let it go that night. They should get a party bus. I have a feeling Sean Silver's a pretty good time on a party bus. I don't know why. You all right, Quinnipiac, Kevin? You good? Thumbs up, buddy? All right. Got to check on him every once in a while. So there was nonstop pre-draft talk about the third pick, right? Would the Patriots trade the pick? Would they keep the pick? What in the hell will they do with the pick? Well, Hard Knocks, as we know, has the Giants on their little program this year during camp season. And there was a clip from tonight's show, and it's Joe Shane, Giants GM, Elliott Wolf, Patriots, VP or EVP of player personnel, whatever the title is. So it's Shane and Wolf having a conversation. Now, this conversation happens 4 hours and 28 minutes before the draft. So this is that Thursday afternoon. Shane calls Wolf.
What's up, buddy? So what's going on? You guys still listening, or you guys make a decision? What are you thinking?
I think we're pretty heavy with me, and we're just sitting here thinking.
Okay.
But if you it's like 1, 2, 3 this year, 1, 2 next, exactly.
So, but I mean, it's gonna be something crazy like that.
It would probably have to be pretty significant.
Okay, so like a 1 this year, or not that, obviously it'd be 6 this year, a 1 next year, and then something more this year is not going to do it. It's got to be multiples in 25.
Just we're in this situation where we just probably gonna sit and pick a quarterback,
Okay.
Straight to music. So the back and forth is always fascinating to me. This is the great part of Hard Knocks, is you get to see, listen to these conversations, right, that we would never, ever have a chance to see play out or hear play out. The back and forth, a few things about it. Number one, this unequivocally tells us that the New York Giants wanted Drake May. At least it was Drake May if we're talking Drake May versus Jaden Daniels. Maybe they wanted J.J. McCarthy, but that makes no sense because guess what? McCarthy was there at 6 for them, and they didn't draft J.J. McCarthy. So, unequivocally, the Giants, they wanted Drake May. They were sold on May, and that was the reporting at the time. That makes me feel good because Joe Shane was the assistant general manager with the Buffalo Bills when they drafted Josh Allen. He was in that front office. He was the right-hand man to the GM when they made the decision to draft Josh Allen. Brian Daboll, of course, worked with Josh Allen. In Allen's development, when Allen became one of the best quarterbacks in the league, it was with Brian Daboll working with him as his offensive coordinator. So you have Shane and Daboll, both who worked with the Giants and intricately involved with Josh Allen, and they wanted Drake May pretty bad. If you're a Patriots fan, that should make you feel good. Doesn't guarantee that May is going to be a hit, but it's a very good thing that the two guys who evaluated Josh Allen, worked with Josh Allen, developed him into what he is, they saw May and they said to themselves, this guy is a franchise quarterback. Now, the reports, if you go back to draft time, the reports were that the Giants offered number 6 and a 2025 first-round pick, which is just outrageous. Now, listening to that conversation, I don't know if that was officially an offer from Shane. He kind of just threw it out there. They're kind of spitballing. And Wolf says, hey, look, if you're going to give us a 1, 2, and 3 this year, or a 1, 2, and then he stops himself and says, obviously I'm exaggerating a little. I don't know how much he was exaggerating, but Wolf is telling Shane it's going to take a lot. It has to be something significant. And at that point, Shane's like, oh, well, something crazy? Something significant. And then Wolf is just, he cuts it off. It's the situation we're in. We're probably just going to stay and pick the quarterback. Because I'd imagine Elliott Wolf, from how Shane was approaching the phone call, Wolf quickly understood he's not going to give up what it takes to get this third pick in the draft. He's not willing to extend himself that much with that kind of an offer. And so all of the reporting back then, great job by the reporters, right? Because what we heard, the Giants were interested. They were absolutely interested. They wanted Drake May. There were conversations about the number 6 pick and a 2025 first. That conversation absolutely happened. We just heard it. And reporters told us that the Patriots were not going to deal that number 3 pick unless they were knocked over. And that's true. And I believe they made the right decision. I think it was the right call to stick and pick, draft Drake May at 3. Take the big swing. I said it well before the draft. I said it during the draft. And I'm saying it well after the draft. Taking that big swing at the quarterback with the talent and the athletic profile of Drake May was the right thing to do. If you hit on Drake May, a lot of things fall into place. Now, of course, if you don't hit on Drake May, you could have a little bit of a situation on your hands. 617-779-0985. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray. Murray's musings up next.
You're listening to Joe Murray on 98.5. You're listening to Joe Murray.
I was going to say, is that Feldman? Feldman's my guy. I haven't seen Feldman in a long time. That dude's the best. The best.
Yes, and Mark Feldman is back in the building, so we're hoping he may get a newer version of that sometime soon.
I heard he's back in the building. I think he was brought back at roughly the same time I was brought back. Feldman's awesome. Good stuff with that open. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray. Joe's working the middays this week. A little bit of a better schedule for Joe. Sure, he's not hating that, at least for this week. Skaz, Quinnipiac, Kevin in the back, helping with the program. Appreciate you. YouTubers, what's up? If you're still left in the YouTube chat, how we doing out there? Is the intern, Quinnipiac Kevin, is he picking fights with you? You let Skaz know. Skaz will write him up or something. Can you punish him in some way?
I don't think I have that power. We don't need to let Kevin know that, though.
I don't know. He might have to bring back one of those like intern slips where you got to say that he was good and worthwhile. Stab him in the back, shiv him at the last moment.
Need him to bring us one of those pizzas from the Quinnipiac area down in New Haven.
All right, Murray's musings here. Here's something that has irritated more and more myself and my wife since we've been back home. We came back home last summer, and I love breweries. I love breweries. I have like one vice in this life, and it is craft beer. Not afraid to admit it. It's my vice. And there are lots of good breweries in Massachusetts, okay? Lots of good beer in Massachusetts. But here's my issue. I got a big problem. With a lot of the live music that I hear at these breweries. It's an issue, folks. Singers of these live local musical acts that are playing at breweries, the singers are a problem. And I have an issue with not only the singer who's not good, I have an issue with whoever doesn't tell the singer that they're not good. Maybe I'm crazy, okay? But if I had a friend in a band and he or she is out there singing and they're not good, I would tell them. Does that make me a bad person? I don't think so. But I would tell them, you might want to go out and get another singer. Because, look, you're a really good musician. The singing, not really your thing. And here's what happens. These people who are not good at it, nobody tells them they're not good at it. Their parents are like, oh, no, Timmy, you can sing, when Timmy can't carry a freaking note. Timmy grows up. Timmy's like, I'm going to be the lead singer of my band. And he ends up going to a brewery that I love on a Friday night, beautiful night, and ruins it. Because he can't sing. So I have an issue with Timmy's parents. I have an issue with Timmy's friends. Help your friend out. If your friend is not good at something, tell them they're not good at something because they're ruining my Friday and Saturday nights. I'm not going to tell you where I was, but Kelly and I, last Friday night, okay, I had to work on Saturday, had to work on Sunday. So I was able to sneak out the house for a couple of hours to have a couple of beers with the wifey. It was a beautiful night. Friday was a beautiful night. There was no humidity. There was a breeze. We're outside. The beer is good. The vibes are great. And then a band gets on the stage. They had 4 singers. This band had 4 singers. Do you know how many of those 4 singers could actually sing? 0. So not only did you have a bad singer, you had 4 bad singers. And they're swapping song to song. Like they're one guy sings a song, he's awful. Next guy sings a song, he's terrible. Next guy sings a song, I'm like, can we throw a dart and hit one that sings well? Ruined my night. I left. We got up and we left. If the band was better, I might have hung out for another hour. I might have had another drink. So my question is, who's booking the music at these breweries? If you own a brewery, it doesn't mean that you know music. It doesn't mean that you evaluate music well. Because I'm telling you, there are too many of you out there, you owners of these breweries. There's too many of you out there that are not doing a good job booking bands because they stink. The majority of them stink. And it could single-handedly ruin a great night. Friday night could have been perfect. Could have been perfect. But the four guys trying to hold a tune on the stage got in my way, got in my wife's way. Here's a bit of advice for all of you who own a bar or a brewery and you're unsure. You're unsure about the music that you're booking. Don't book it. If you're unsure, don't book it. There's nothing wrong with just playing music. There's nothing wrong with the touch tunes. There's nothing wrong with any of that. Put some good music on. Let the people talk to each other and have a good time. You don't have to have live music. If the live music's good, it certainly helps. But there are too many times I'm going out on Friday nights and there are bad bands out there. And bad bands stop being bad. Singers, all of you, stop. I know you want to be, at the TD Garden or Fenway Park playing a sold-out show because you grew up and you had one of your favorite bands and you watched them live and you never forget that moment and you've always wanted to be a rock star. Guess what? Not everybody is born to sing. Find something else that you can do. Take up cornhole or darts. Play some pool. You don't have to try to sing at a brewery and ruin my Friday night. So that's it. I'm just tired of the bad music. Nothing, just enjoying your night, and then you got somebody up there. Ah! What the hell is that? It's not karaoke. You're a live band. You're not some ham-boned person who's up in front of a room trying not to throw up while singing their favorite song. Enough is enough, people. I expect more from you. Brew the beer. Don't worry about the music. Because you're not doing yourself any favors. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray. That's Skaz. Kevin as well, alongside Skaz, behind the glass. Let's jump back into the Patriots. Who will win the quarterback job coming out of camp? We'll discuss that in 90 seconds.
From the Town Fair Tire Studios, relatable, reliable, and even relentless at times.
We're doing it live.
This is Boston's home for sports. WBZ-FM and HD Boston 98.5, the Sports Hub.
Beasley Media Group station.
Sports Hub headlines.
Red Sox lead 6-0 in Colorado in the top of the fifth inning. Runner on first, no outs. Romy Gonzalez with the mustache is at the plate. So we'll see if the Red Sox can hold on to this one tonight. According to Alex Spear, by the way, the Red Sox have reached out to the Dodgers about recently DFA'd starter James Paxton to express their interest in trading for the lefty. Jerod Mayo met with the media today. Devon Godchow, Matthew Judon, both present for training camp. Both expected to practice. Jonathan Jones also expected back, according to the man himself who spoke with the media. He missed minicamp due to off-season surgery. More Patriots news. Team plays Kendrick Bourne, Cole Strange, Sion Taki, and Jake Andrews on the PUP list. And running back Antonio Gibson begins camp on the NFI list. Kyle Shanahan told Tim Kawakami of The Athletic on the TK Show pod that he offered Bill Belichick the defensive coordinator job in San Francisco. Belichick politely turned him down. More NFL news. CeeDee Lamb not reporting to Cowboys camp as he beefs about his contract. Brandon Ayuk is at 49ers camp. Amari Cooper is at Browns camp after agreeing to a restructuring of his contract. Matthew Stafford also got a restructured deal, a little bit of an adjustment, and he has reported to camp. Jets defensive end Hassan Reddick is holding out. Celtics announced their preseason schedule. They play Denver October 4th in Abu Dhabi. They play them again October 6th in Abu Dhabi. Then they play on October 12th, 13th, and 15th to wrap up the preseason at Toronto Scotiabank Arena. Headlines are brought to you by Awaken 180. Take strokes off your game by taking pounds off your frame with Awaken 180. How many birdies can you uncover? Awaken180weightloss.com. I think I butchered that one. I'm Nick Cattles on Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. I'll try to be better at 10:30.
This is Jaylen Brown.
Jaylen Brown turns the corner. Finger roll is up and good. Score to the foul.
Listen to home of the Boston Celtics, 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Cattles and Brewery. Happy Tuesday night. By the way, Skaz, what is Joe Murray's beef with Jerod Mayo? Because he was laying into Mayo today. My goodness.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that. I know Joe, he's very skeptical of the team this year, but yeah, he was not happy with Jerod Mayo today, revealing too much to the media, I think is what I heard.
Yeah. He was, Murray was a little upset by this. He was not pleased.
No, and I think Jerod Mayo does have an uphill battle, so I'm not gonna get on him quite yet. But yeah, I'm with Murray in the fact that the Patriots have a very tough season ahead of them, but I don't think a lot of it falls on Jerod Mayo.
Well, one big thing that we got to figure out, of course, is who's going to be quarterback of this team. We think this competition will come down to Jacoby Brissett and Drake May. We're pretty confident in that unless Joe Milton or Bailey Zappi do something bananas. And the competition between May and Brissett, it's story number one. And I think it's going to remain story number one throughout camp unless May just looks awful at some point and then we say, oh, he's way too young, it's way too early, it's not going to work out just yet. But May versus Brissett, it is going to be the conversation. And Devin McCourty was on the Rich Eisen show earlier today, and he was asked about May succeeding in the NFL.
I think high. And I think what's interesting right now is there's this big, intense love for him right now, not just from the front office and, the people in the building, from the players. And I think that is something over the last few years since Brady has left has been a little bit of a roller coaster with Cam coming in. And I think right away Cam won over the locker room and guys went out there and played. And that was 1 year and done. And then Matt comes in and he plays as a rookie. And, we won 10 games the year my second to last year I was there. And it's like, oh, man, things are looking great. And then you kind of saw at the end of that with Matt, with the team, the locker room, everything just kind of fell apart. And I think Drake May now comes in to fill the future void that they had there, a guy that everyone can believe in, a guy that the organization can say, hey, this is our guy. He's going to lead us. He's going to be the front runner. He's going to be in front of everybody. And I think the biggest part of that is the guys in the locker room truly believe in that.
So the biggest part of it is that the guys in that locker room truly believe in him and truly believe in that he could be the guy. And we've heard some of this, right? Mike Giardi a couple days ago wrote at Boston Sports Journal about how the players, they look at Drake May and they say, he can do things that other guys that we've had recently couldn't do. Not trying to be disrespectful to those other guys, but it's just a fact. When you look at Drake May, he's capable of doing some special things. And that's exciting. That's what Giardi wrote, according to somebody he spoke with. So we're hearing this. We're hearing it from Giardi. We're hearing it from McCourty. Who's McCourty close with? Oh, yeah. Close with Jerod Mayo. I'm not telling you Mayo is telling McCourty that the team believes in Drake May, but what I'm telling you is McCourty, I would have to imagine, gets some pretty good intel because he knows a ton of guys on the team and he's tight with Mayo. So that tells us May is winning over this locker room already. It has not taken him much time at all to get a lot of people in that locker room believing that he could be the dude. I ask you, though, who do you think wins this job when camp is all said and done? Because in 13 hours or so, guys are going to be out there on the field. Training camp begins. So in 13 hours, May versus Brissett truly starts. And I ask you, who do you think wins the job? 617-779-0985. Again, 617-779-0985. I actually put up this poll earlier in the night on Twitter, at Nick C Radio, if you want to follow me, at Nick C Radio. Who wins the Patriots QB1 gig out of camp? Option A is Brissett. Option B is Drake May. 71.4% of the people who voted say it's going to be Jacoby Brissett. Do you agree or disagree with that? Do you think Drake May leapfrogs the veteran? 617-779-0985. I, Nick Cattles, in for Joe Murray on this Tuesday. I agree with that 70+%. Jacoby Brissett is going to be your starting quarterback in week 1. That's where I think this lands. He's ahead on the scheme. He's ahead on the verbiage. He knows this offense. He knows this offensive coordinator. He's been in the league a number of years. He's been handed many different situations throughout his NFL career, whether it's throwing a game plan on his lap at the last second for a Thursday night football game because Jimmy Garoppolo decided that he was not going to play in the final day or so before that game, and doing what he did for the Patriots that night. Whether it's, going to Indianapolis, being traded to Indy, and Andrew Luck calling it a career and then all of a sudden being thrust into being the starter for that team. Going to Cleveland, dealing with Deshaun Watson, the off-the-field stuff, the big-time contract. Watson, everybody knowing he was going to be the franchise quarterback, but yet Brissett having to play in 2022 because of Watson's situation and playing well. He has handled so many different situations. And he is obviously, right now, clearly ahead of Drake May. And I want that offense to start fast if I'm the Patriots. I want that offense to be fired out of a freaking cannon as much as you can. And I think with that experience, with the scheme, with the verbiage, with the offensive coordinator, I believe that experience gives the Patriots the better chance to start fast. And really, if it's close, it's much easier to start Jacoby Brissett and then go to Drake May if Brissett is failing or May's playing great at practice. It's much easier to go from Brissett to May. If you start May and May falls on his face and you're forced to bench your number 3 pick because he couldn't quite handle things, that's a really rough start. That is a tremendously rough start. So who do you think wins this quarterback job? Brissett or May? 617-779-0985. Patriots camp starts tomorrow. Open phone lines for you. Any Patriots questions that you have, feel free. Throw them at me. I'm ready. We got like 47 minutes left of this program. Throw your Patriots questions at us. 617-779-0985. Let's go to Paul in Marlboro. Hey, Paul. Hello, Paul.
Hello?
Hello.
This is the wrong person.
Okay. I'm going to drop that call because I don't know what happened. I have no... Quinnipiac Kevin screwed up. Got to be better than that, bro. Now I'm afraid the next call I go to, they're going to say that this is the wrong person. Let's try Chris. Chris and Peabody. Hey, Chris.
Nick, they have to really, really be careful with the kid because this kid
if you give him time, he's going to be real good. It's just he has it. Okay. Now look what happened to Aaron Rodgers last year. Third play of the game, no offensive line. Aaron Rodgers is nails. Okay. Boom, he went down. End of story. You can't have that happen to this kid. He's a nice kid. Just protect the kid. Who cares what game he goes into? Just protect the kid. Let him learn the game. And really, because if that kid goes down, it's over, baby. See you later.
All right, Chris, thank you. I appreciate the phone call. I'm less worried about him going down due to an injury. I mean, the Rodgers stuff, that's an Achilles. That just pops. It's non-contact. Rodgers, 39 years old. That happens. We've seen it happen with Kevin Durant and other athletes. I'm less worried about the injury part of it, Chris, than I am with the idea of him taking a step back. What I don't want to do is stunt his development because I rush him too early, right? I throw him out there too early. I rush him out there, and now the footwork, the progress that he's made with his footwork, the progress he's made with his mechanics, maybe the improvement he has with reading his progressions and all of that, I throw him out there maybe a little bit too early. And let's say, even if I don't throw him out individually too early, maybe he's ready. Maybe he's ready. Maybe he leapfrogs Jacoby Brissett. He's ready to be your starting quarterback. But if you have questions on the offensive line, if you're not 100% sure that your offensive line is going to be at least average, at least okay, I'd be concerned about him taking a step back. And that's what I don't want. I don't want to put him out there on the field and he takes a step back. His footwork gets screwed up. His mechanics get screwed up. His brain gets sped up. And all of a sudden, all of the things that you had done throughout the camp process and all the improvements that you saw, they're gone, right? Just like that. Within 3 games, within 4 games, you erased months of progression. You erased months of improvement by throwing him out too early, and within weeks, those months were destroyed. That's my biggest fear. 617-779-0985, 617-779-0985. With that said, if he's ready to play and you feel decent about this offensive line, then you play him. If he's ready, if he beats out Brissett and you're not freaking out about the O-line, play him. All right, we'll continue to take your phone calls about the Patriots. Which quarterback do you think wins this job coming out of camp, Brissett or Drake May? 617-779-0985. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray on a Tuesday. Up next, I'll tell you why I think expectations for one Patriot are a little too high.
More Joe Murray coming up on the Sports Hub.
I'll get to that in a couple minutes, but first, let's go to Joe in Rhode Island. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Nick. I love listening to you on the radio, man. You're the best.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
I got to say, man, you got to start May. You got to start him because, I mean, C.J. Stroud, what he did in Atlanta, I don't think any one of us here could even name a wide receiver that the guy threw to. I mean, you got to start the guy who was your third pick overall. I mean, it's now or never. I mean, this team's going to suck whether you have Brissett or the kid in there. Seriously, they got no left tackle. I mean, I get there's no excitement on this team on the offense. So maybe this kid can bring us a little bit of excitement. They say he can run, which he's going to probably be running for his life because, again, the offensive line is not going to be able to protect either one of them. I think he's a much better athlete than Brissett. I mean, the guy's been around for a long time. But you got to start the kid, see what you have, and hope you fill in the pieces. You know what I mean? I just feel like you got to start the kid.
All right, Joe, thank you. I appreciate the phone call and the kind words. See, I think some of that is the reason why I wouldn't be rushing him out there, though, right? If I'm not trusting the offensive line, I don't want to speed up his process. The worst thing, no matter how we feel about this team right now, and I don't think it's going to be a great season, okay? I don't think this is a playoff team. No matter how ugly it might get, the one thing that you cannot afford to do is mess it up with Drake May. That's the one thing that you cannot afford to do. He is the future. If you hit on that pick and he ends up being one of the better quarterbacks in football, you have a chance the next decade plus. You've got a shot. If you draft the right guy at that position and he hits, he fulfills that potential, it's not hyperbolic to say the future of your franchise changes if he's that good. And the worst thing you can do is screw it up with him from the start. The worst thing that you can do is rush him. The rest of the team is just not good enough. The offensive line is just not good enough. You speed his process up. All the progress that he made during camp is vanished. It's gone. You're starting from square one again next season. You just cannot do that. You have to. You have to do right by Drake May. At all costs. It's the one thing that you cannot screw up. You can fix a lot of other things. But if you swing and miss on that third pick and he ends up not being a franchise quarterback, that sets you back at least 2 years. More likely 3 to 5 years. And you are in that nonstop quarterback vortex. So one thing that you cannot mess up this year. All right, let's talk about Pop Douglas for a couple of minutes. 49 catches, 561 yards last year. Didn't catch a touchdown, but a productive rookie season, especially given the fact that after the fumble against the Miami Dolphins, he was benched for a little bit, right? He was benched for a stretch. And then he was banged up. He had some injury issues. So the fact that he missed some time, the fact that he was put in the doghouse after the Miami fumble, which I thought was ridiculous, he had a good season. Let's just call it 50 catches, right? 50 catches, more than 560 yards. It's a good season. And I know a lot of people feel like walking into this camp that he is the best wide receiver on this team. Oh, no. I'm going to have to stop this right now. Rafael Devers is down. It's in the middle of my Pop Douglas take. But Rafael Devers dove for a ground ball at third base. And he's holding his shoulder. We know he's had shoulder issues. And that's why he did not play in the All-Star game. He didn't take part in the festivities. Rafael Devers is down with looks like a shoulder injury. So he dove for a ground ball, and they're checking his range of motion right now with the training staff. So we'll keep an eye on that. But Devers is down. He looked like he was in pain immediately. So you want to talk about something that would certainly make this team not buy. If Rafi Devers is hurt and has to miss time, looks like he's going to try to stay in the game. But we'll see. Anyway, to get back to Pop Douglas. I love Pop. And many people will tell you he's the best receiver on this football team, right? And I'm not necessarily going to disagree with that right now until I see Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, the young guys, until I see them play actual NFL games. I would more lean towards Kendrick Bourne when Kendrick Bourne is healthy, but I get the Pop argument. Here's the thing I would say, though. Temper expectations with Pop Douglas. And it's not because of Pop Douglas's lack of talent. It's not because I don't believe in Pop Douglas. Here's why I'm tempering my expectations. He's not a big guy. He's 5'7", 5'8", 175, whatever he is. They list him. He's probably smaller than what he's listed at. He's a smaller guy, which means, of course, he's more likely to get hurt. He's had a concussion history that we know about, which is a big concern for me. The lack of size also means for a team that wants to establish the run, for somebody who, for a team who wants to establish the run, for somebody like Alex Van Pelt who wants to run the football effectively and really pound it to create opportunities in the pass game, Pop's not a big guy. He's not necessarily a blocker, right? He's not going to block. You look at these other receivers for the Patriots, those guys can block. Jalen Polk, he'll block. Javon Baker, I think he'll block a little bit. Bourne will block. Bigger guys. And so that could end up limiting, at least in part, that could end up limiting snaps for Pop Douglas at times this year. And don't forget, this wide receiver room has improved. More mouths to feed. And you're going to run the football more. So I love Pop Douglas. I think he's a very talented guy. But given the situation, some of the circumstances, some people might be thinking 75, 80 catches, 1,000 yards. I'm just going to hold off saying he's going to catch 75, 80 balls, give you 1,000 yards. I'm going to try to temper my expectations a little bit. 617-779-0985 is the telephone number. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray on a Tuesday. Which positional group is the deepest as the Pats head into camp? That's next.
Sports Hub headlines.
Red Sox lead 6-0.
98.5 The Sports Hub.
Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray on this Tuesday. Joe was on the midday show, Zolak and Bertrand with Tim McCone earlier today. Believe Joe is back on that show tomorrow. Shout out to Skaz and Quinnipiac, Kevin behind the glass, doing tremendous work tonight, handling certain phone calls as well as they can. Well, Skaz is. At NY Flight Jets. You know who that is, Quinnipiac, Kevin? At New York Flight Jets on Twitter. Do you know who that is? Yes, you do. You spoke to the individual earlier tonight on the phone. This individual now follows me. The bio. 13-year-old Jets content creator and writer. I swear to you.
Kevin says you're welcome for him getting you another follower.
Email address and everything here. Shout out to NY Flight Jets, who I thought was a really good phone call, honestly. Thought it was a really good phone call. And I liked the fact that the young man held off until the very end to troll us with the Jets thing. Hook, line, sinker. By the way, did you see that video of the whale that attacked the boat?
I was shocked by that.
Good for that whale.
Makes me nervous. I'm not an ocean guy.
Good for that whale. We all understand that, like, you know, we're impeding their space, right? Like we're that's their territory. A whale gets pissed off one day and just smashes a boat. Oh well, bleep happens. I mean, it stinks for that person's boat, but it is what it is. It's an amazing video. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go to Twitter. It's all over the joint. I saw it 100 times today. Everybody was retweeting it and quote tweeting it. All right, strongest positional group. We're almost 12 hours away from Patriots training camp beginning. Strongest positional group. I'm going to say defensive back. Some of you might think I'm crazy. I've said this before. I'll say it again. Skaz knows I don't care. You think I'm nuts? Good. Enjoy listening to somebody who's nuts. I'm going to go defensive back. Let's start with Christian Gonzalez, okay? Clear-cut, outside cornerback one. Shutdown guy, young stud. Stay healthy, I have no questions. Then you look at outside cornerback two. In this competition, outside cornerback two is one of the most intriguing competitions for me at this camp. Because you've got Jonathan Jones, who is the incumbent, right? He's the guy that's been here for years, but he's on the last year of his deal. He is now on the wrong side of 30. And you have a number of different guys, young guys, who are going to challenge Jonathan Jones. Alex Austin, who had a very good minicamp, showed flashes at the end of last season. Alex Austin is squarely in the competition for OCB2. Isaiah Bolden, who had a good camp last year before he got injured in the preseason, he is going to be part of this competition. Marco Wilson, don't sleep on Marco Wilson at cornerback too. Former fourth-round draft pick. Had a good 2022. Don't sleep on that guy making the team. This is going to be a good competition. And if you can get either Jonathan Jones or Alex Austin or Bolden or Wilson, any of those guys, to play at a good level across from Christian Gonzalez, watch out. Because Gonzalez, if he stays healthy, is good enough to take the other team's best receiver. We saw that last year through the first month before he got hurt. And if you have somebody who can shut down half of the field, now you have outside cornerback two who's good enough, and you can help outside cornerback two. Think Darrelle Revis, Brandon Browner, the year you beat Seattle. that kind of vibe. Then you have a couple of wild cards. Marcus Jones, tons of natural talent. Can he stay healthy? We'll have to wait and see. If he stays healthy, he's pretty damn good. Drafted Marcellus Dial. Dial will be in the mix. And I think, I don't want to say it's likely he makes the team because he's a 6th-round pick, but he was the only defensive player chosen in that draft. So he might have the inside track on a gig. So that's just cornerback. I think you have some good, solid depth there. Alex Austin looks like an NFL player to me. Jonathan Jones is absolutely an NFL player, and I think he's been underrated almost his entire time here. Bolden, Wilson, those guys, Wilson's an NFL player. Bolden looked the part before the injury. I don't know how many teams can roll into a camp feeling they've got 5 or 6 guys at cornerback that are all legitimate NFL players. I don't know how many teams have that. Then you've got safety. Tons of versatility, right? You've got Peppers and Duggar who can play the hybrid role. They can play on the deep end. They can play in the box. I think they should be more in the box, especially Duggar. But you have some versatility with those two guys. Jalen Hawkins, who was signed to a 1-year contract in the offseason, he got plenty of snaps at free safety during minicamp, and he did not look lost. You even have a little bit of a mystery. Marte Mapu. What's his deal? Is he going to play safety? Is he going to play linebacker? Is he going to play both? And the coaching. We talk about all the questions on the offensive side, and we should. Offensive side, you had so much turnover on the field. You have all sorts of turnover in the coaching staff. Pretty much everybody. Bunch of new faces. Defensively, not the case. And the defensive backfield, certainly not the case. Mike Pellegrino has done a tremendous job with a number of different cornerbacks from all sorts of different backgrounds. Mid-round draft guys, late-round draft guys, undrafted guys. Pellegrino's done a fantastic job with cornerbacks. Brian Belichick coaching safeties. You have that continuity in the coaching staff. You have that continuity on the field. You have depth. And you have some pretty damn good talent in your secondary. So I would say defensive backs, cornerback and safety, is a very, very strong positional group. Very strong. It's a Tuesday night. It's 10:47, which means we got one more segment left. Nick Cattle's in for Joe Murray. What are we going to do in our final segment? Well, we'll tell you what Snoop Dogg is up to and why it might shock you.
You're listening to Joe Murray on 98.5.
I could throw this out now, right? See you later, sponsorships. You've served us well. By the way, Cooper Criswell, huh? 7 shutout innings, just what the Red Sox needed. 6 Zippo, top of the 8th. All right. So obviously that's Snoop Doggy Dogg, doggy doggy dog, doggy dog. And I remember this. This is going to age me. I don't care. I was in junior high. And I remember being in the front of Riverside Junior High School in Riverside, Rhode Island. And there were some young guys, some of my buddies. And they were all like kind of circled together in front of the school one morning. Just trying to figure out what was going on. What had all the attention. And one of those guys, one of those young men, impressionable young men, was holding a cassette tape. That's right, I said cassette tape. And it was Doggy Style. And I'll never forget the dog in the front and the brick. Never forget it. And that day is the day I became a fan of Snoop Dogg. Now, I tell that story because Snoop Dogg is aging like a fine wine, my friends. He just gets better with age. It might be the weed. And you wonder, why are we talking about Snoop Dogg? It's a very good reason why we're talking about Snoop Dogg, because it does have to do with sports, if you're wondering. This is according to Reuters. Snoop Dogg will be among the torchbearers carrying the Olympic flame in the final stretch before the opening ceremony of the Paris Games on Friday. Snoop Dogg, if you're wondering, is 52 years old. He will carry the torch through the streets of Saint-Denis, the northern Paris suburb that is home to the, some stadium in France. The rapper is also contributing to NBC's coverage of the games. And I share this with you because I was of the generation that grew up and watched all those commercials. This is your brain on drugs. And there were always commercials about mom and dad being angry at kids who were smoking the marijuana. How dare you smoke the marijuana? And I bring this up because is it not incredibly ironic and delicious that Snoop Dogg, who has long stood on the mountaintop of ganj, is now carrying the torch for elite athletes coming out of this country? Is that not awesome? It's crazy. When I was standing in front of Riverside Junior High School in Riverside, Rhode Island, and those kids were gathering around the cassette tape, could you imagine if I said, you know what? In about 30 years, Snoop Dogg is going to carry the torch for the Olympics.
Snoop Dogg and Flavor Flav making Olympic appearances.
Which begs the question, honestly, I want you to think about this for a second. Is there any other rapper that could do this? Is there any other rapper that could pull this off? I mean, Eminem's done his NFL stuff with Roger Goodell, which has been really awkward. But could anybody else literally carry the torch at the Olympic Games? Snoop Dogg is doing that. They told you marijuana's not good for you, but here he is, one of the main representatives of weed in our country over the past 3 decades, representing this country now and this country's elite athletes.
Maybe like Ice Cube with the Big 3 stuff. He's kind of become commercialized the last, 15, 20 years. But yeah, I'm having a tough time thinking of anybody.
Jay-Z?
Yeah, Jay-Z. He's pretty big. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good one. Like, I can't imagine like Lil Wayne or Nas or one of those guys doing it. I think it would have to be like Ice Cube.
I just found this to be amazing. How many musicians could carry the torch? Not just rappers. How many musicians could do this? This is Snoop Dogg. There's no way on God's green earth, there's no way that anybody would have seen this happening. Even like I don't know, 10 years ago, let alone 30.
Like, is Taylor Swift going to carry the torch when it's in North America in a couple of years?
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised by that with her popularity, just to get the eyeballs on the TV screen.
Can't rule anything out now.
That's what I love about it, though. Like, Snoop Dogg, just Snoop Dogg. Like, yeah, he's popular, but it's not like he's, world renowned. At least I don't think he is. I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, all right. Snoop's got it like that, huh? Torch beer at the Olympic Games in Paris? What's Paris going to think about this? Shout out to Snoop. Again, aging like a fine wine. Hopefully this show aged like a fine wine and not like milk. Quinnipiac Kevin, look for him to get better at some point soon. Skaz, fantastic. I'm back on Friday night. I'll be in for Joe on Friday. Until then, enjoy your next couple of nights without me. This has been Nick Cattles, in for Joe Murray, 98.5 The Sports Hour.
From the Town Clear Tire Studios, the only place to hear the local call of the game is right here. WBC-FM and HD Boston. Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub. Beasley Media Group station. We are Buffalo. And here's what you need to know.
The Subway Series is imminent.
The 2-2 pitch. Swinging a ground ball wide at second. McNeil's got it. Sets. Throws to first. Put it in the box.
That is it. Mets Radio Network, they win it 3-2 against the Yankees. Jeff McNeil had a 2-run home run in the game that ended up putting the Mets up for good. Padres 4-0 winners against the Nationals.